There's some kind of strange aura leaking out from the cracks. Are they really just cracks? Good question. Were the developers on crack when they made the environments of this game? Another good question. What? Are you kidding me?
What the fuck?
What is this? No. Why did you go invisible? How did this game ship? And what is going on here? This is a perfect game with no bugs or flaws whatsoever. Let me tell you that. Are you flying? The 7 a.m. presents there. What? Did they break the game more with this update? What is going on? Nice shadow render distance game. Look at this look at the environments in this game.
Stop!
Come on, the quest thing is over there. Where did you come from?
Was that the bite of 87?
It's been no secret to anybody around this channel for a while to know that I've been very skeptical of Pokemon in recent years. I initially voiced this about a year ago in a video essay detailing the story of Pokemon thus far on the Switch, with Let's Go and Sword and Shield, as well as looking towards the future with Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Legends Arceus, and what concerns these titles came with. This video was also intended as a commentary towards the diminishment of the customizability and interactivity that originally helped make Pokemon into the most profitable media IP in the world. You used to be able to make whatever party you wanted and battle and trade with anybody else with the same generation of games, which I had defined as Pokemon's magic, which had unfortunately been diminished or put behind additional paywalls, hence losing the magic. This was met with overwhelmingly positive reception, considering it was a 93% like ratio on a controversial topic. Though, there were also a lot of people who didn't bother to listen to what my definition of magic actually was, and instead created and affirmed their own definition. Just another typical day on the internet, I suppose. So, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl release, and I decided to do a video essay on this title, a follow-up after my initial one, and see how close things were to my predictions and really delve into the nitty-gritty of this game. I then spent the next 2 months working on that video essay, even going so far as to working on it remotely when I was away for the holidays. That video got published, and quickly became the fastest growing video I've ever put out. It was incredible. I've seen people joining the Discord, sending me Twitter messages, or even sending me emails in a couple of cases to thank me for that video, and it's been so incredibly heartwarming to have my videos talking about what I'm passionate about be able to resonate with people so thank you so much. So, after that video, it seemed only natural that a Legends Arceus video would follow. We started this story about a year ago, and now we can say, finally, I have them all. All stories must eventually come to an end, and I'm proud to finally present to you the Pokemon Legends Arceus video essay to finish off this trilogy. Pokemon is so much more than just a game. It's a brand, a media IP, a community. While you can play any of the games on their own just fine, it's best not to treat this like a closed system, because it's not. This is a large enough brand that releases are based around their other releases, and what connects and how. So before we analyze Legends Arceus as a game, we first need to establish its relation to the other games in the series. And also, let's just get this out of the way, yes, I say Arceus instead of Arceus, I just prefer it, okay? For the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl video essay, we first compared it to the Pokemon remakes of series past, but for Legends Arceus, the key comparison is with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. These games released only 3 months apart from each other, both taking place in the Sinnoh region, one a remake and the other a new original game. These games are clearly tied together. Pokemon is the highest grossing media IP for a reason. It's so much more than just the games. It's the merchandise, the anime, the movies, the trading card game, the apps, the tournaments, the community events. While the games aren't the highest revenue generator behind this IP, that would be the merchandise, they're still what all the other media centers around. New games means new merch, new cards, new anime arcs, so on. So it would make sense for them to release more than just one new game centered around this region and its marketability. These games could boost the sales of their counterparts and the sales of the other surrounding media. So, they had the idea to release their Diamond and Pearl remake as basically just a glitchy reskin of the original games from 2007, developed by an outsourcing company that's never made a full video game before. And their core team of Game Freak would work on something brand new to a formula that had gradually been getting stale. They would strike the balance between classic experience and new experience. Of course, this wouldn't have to happen if Nintendo as a whole would actually support their classic games, instead of using NES and SNES games to inflate the price of their online service, put Nintendo 64 and Genesis games behind another service, and never make available any games younger than that so that they can cherry pick things to re-release at full price with really crummy ports or remasters like Super Mario 3D All-Stars, Skyward Sword HD, or Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. The quality of these games doesn't matter much when the company makes it so that your only options are to pay full price for the crummy remaster, or spend 5 livers on eBay for the original. Seriously, if you could play classic games like Pokémon Platinum on the Switch, how many people would really be playing BDSP? So, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in relation to Pokémon Sinnoh Adventures on the Switch serve to fill the void created by Nintendo's classic game conundrum, something that I've outlined in more detail in other videos, and would help stoke the fire towards the new title, and Legends Arceus would be a brand new gameplay style to the formula. The way BDSP and Legends Arceus are tied together goes a bit deeper than that though. One of the things I talked about in the BDSP essay was FOMO, the fear of missing out, which can come in the form of things like pre-order or early buying bonuses. This serves as a means to increase sales by getting those on the fence about buying or who think that they might buy it later down the line to go and get it right now. Otherwise, their save file will be permanently missing this content. So, I was salty at BDSP including an early buying bonus, and it shouldn't be surprising to see Legends adopted an early buying bonus too. At least Legends didn't have a literal buying options chart like BDSP did. However, there's something very fascinating with these releases and early buying rewards overall. When Legends Arceus released, it was revealed that there were events in this game tied to save files of other games. Darkrai's mission is locked behind Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl save data, Shaman's mission is locked behind Sword and Shield save data, and Let's Go save data would add additional customizability. Don't you miss the good old days where you would buy a game and you would have the full game? Nowadays, if you want the full game, you need to buy early, and need to buy this other game, and you need to buy this other game, and you need to buy this other game. To be fair, you can always get the other games lent from a friend to just get a save on your Switch so you can get these rewards without actually owning said games, but I think it should be pretty obvious that this design choice wasn't made with executives being like, we sure hope that doing this gets people to share their games with each other. No, it was clearly made with the idea, we sure hope this gets people to buy more games. Lending the other games is a workaround, yes, but it's not the intended design choice. And as an update to this on what is now currently the 15th of March, we now see evidence for this with the Arceus event in BDSP that was just revealed. It seems the Pokémon company caught on that some people were just lending games as a workaround. So what's their solution? You actually need a completed save file on your Switch now. The first time the Arceus event has ever actually been released in the original Sinnoh adventure it was intended for, after over a decade and a half. And to unlock it, you need to have a finished save file of Legends Arceus. So, the prerequisite for catching Arceus is catching Arceus. Why wouldn't you just transfer over the Legends Arceus at that point? Oh right, no home compatibility or any word on when/if that's coming. Wasn't the reason they never released this event in the first place because they thought it would be too complicated to figure out, as hypocritical as that is for Pokemon? Though that was just a cover story and the real reason was a lot deeper. But still, when you tell your player base that the reason you held back on content was because you felt it was too complicated, and then you eventually finally make it available after 15 years and exponentially increase the complexity by making it mandatory to buy and complete a completely separate game, then you're clearly manipulating consumers while at the same time making a fool of yourself. There's a lot of people who own both games already who jump on defending this. It's just a free bonus Pokemon for them after all. But these event Pokemon are not for you. They're for people who only got one of the games and are now told that the only way to unlock this other content is by purchasing these other games. Rather than selling this content as microtransactions, it's instead hidden behind macrotransactions in an attempt to move more units. Relating back now to how this ties into early buying bonuses, so now you've got somebody playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, and they really want to get Darkrai, but they can't. Turns out they need to have save data for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl to get Darkrai. Alright, let's look into that game. What's this? An early buying bonus? I'll never be able to get the Platinum outfits or Manaphy if I get this game after February 21st? Well, dang, I guess I better get it now before I miss my chance and I'm stuck with a game that will never have all its content. The release window of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl with this early purchase bonus along with Legends Arceus is so incredibly genius, and I hate it so much. BDSP releases shortly before the holidays, so with a name like Pokemon and a label like Diamond and Pearl, this game is able to sell incredibly well despite literally just being a reskin of the 2007 originals. You couldn't release Legends before the holidays too, because then people wouldn't know which Pokemon games to get for the holidays, so the company made it easy for them by taking away that choice. So then, Legends releases shortly after the holidays, and I'm sure a lot of adolescents can pick it up with money that they got during the holidays. This release window of both games works out perfectly for the holidays, while still feeling like they released far enough apart that they weren't quite released as a pair. In this way, they nailed the release window for those who planned on getting both titles. But what about those who don't want the remake and are only interested in the new game? That's where the save data locked events and early buying bonuses come in. If you pick up Legends and can't get Darkrai because you don't have BDSP, this gets you thinking about whether you want to get BDSP. And turns out, you have less than a month to make up your mind if you want to have that full game. In case you were wondering why Pokemon was doing an early purchase bonus that goes for several months instead of pre-order bonuses like most other companies would do, this is why. It's so smart, I'm honestly impressed, but it's also so scummy. I really don't think there's a better way to put it than it's serving to further diminish consumer autonomy. And then, it's only in the middle of actually making this video that Generation 9 with Scarlet and Violet get revealed. And for later this same year, no less. 2 main series Pokemon titles in the same year, one introducing new concepts, and the latter implementing it in a new generation. So, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl existed largely to stoke the fire for Legends Arceus, but even Legends Arceus existed to stoke the fire for another game, being Scarlet and Violet. And not in the way of virtually any other game out there where the last game is going to stoke the fire for the next game. No, these actually directly lead into each other. BDSP was your old classic title, Legends Arceus was your taste of new, and Scarlet and Violet is implementing that new in a new generation. These exist to directly lead into one another, which is why I figured it was worth shoehorning into this video essay. This isn't just a smart 2-game release window, as I thought when I first wrote the script for this video and made the video up until this point, but rather a smart 3-game release window. Take Zelda, for example, the span between new main series releases. 7 years between Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, 5 years between it and its sequel. Kirby, this one is a 4-year difference on the Switch. Xenoblade, 5 years too. But Pokemon, Scarlet and Violet is releasing this year, so likely around November/December, similar to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So if we have a starting point of the release of BDSP and trace it to Scarlet and Violet to get approximately 1 year, that means that in the span of 1 year, Pokemon releases 3 main series titles. Out of any of the IPs out there I'm familiar with, this pace is completely unheard of. Even take some of the most famous regular annual release games like Call of Duty or Battlefield that release 1 new game every year. So if you trace from the release of 1 game to the next, you can get 2 game releases in the span of 1 year, but never 3. And even then, these games ship unfinished and often take half a year before people consider them to be properly flushed out. Pokemon's main series release pace is nearly unprecedented in terms of high-budget AAA releases. It is more feasible to manage multiple releases if they are created by various different studios. This often leads to spin-offs, such as Nintendo Warriors games, or any of the bazillion other things Mario does, for example. In the case of Pokemon, we get things like Mystery Dungeon with Rescue Team DX, Pokken Tournament, New Pokemon Snap, all pretty awesome games by the way. Regular releases become more feasible with the implementation of multiple different studios working on different projects. Pokémon realized this, and so, for the first time, gave a main series game to another studio, though that turned out, well, that was the last video. Game Freak, however, would work on the other title, which now turns out to be titles, Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. Their team was split, their resources spread thin, as this one studio needed to pull off 2 releases in the same year. By doing this, this release window would work perfectly for the holidays, BDSP and Scarlet and Violet seemingly being releases shortly before the holidays, and Legends Arceus being shortly after the holidays, and capitalizing on the last month of BDSP's early purchase bonus. This whole release window is honestly an incredibly smart way to maximize profit for the producer, but the one who pays the price for this release window is the consumer, by receiving products not up to the same standards of other AAA titles on the console, or even up to the standards of several mobile games, to be honest. I've had some who really want to make sure I know that they think release dates are completely set in stone, almost as if it's a law of the universe or something. At the end of the day, you're always going to have somebody deciding what the release window is going to be, but the window that turns the most profit for the producer isn't necessarily going to be what delivers the best experience to the consumer. Pokemon's new rate of main series releases is insanely fast. No other AAA studio worth their salt would try to pump out main games at this quick a pace. Main Pokemon games are being released or announced so fast that I can't even get a video essay out during the time when the game in question is still relevant. So, as for how Legends seemed to take a hit from the split production with Scarlet and Violet, well, that's what's covered next as we finish this little shoehorned bit and get back into the original script. During the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl essay, I talked about how the game had indications it was going to be released in a rushed state due to what was seemingly a lack of vertical slices, and that's something that Legends suffered with before release as well. I went into it in depth in the last essay, so I'll give the short version here. A proper trailer should be released and release date set only when you have your game in a state when you have many nearly finished vertical slices you can show off, and when what you have left before release seems like it can be feasibly achieved in that time. The reveal trailer for Legends Arceus featured fun little tidbits like models that look like they came straight out of VR chat, animation FPS that looked like it ran on a toaster, or Bidoof, who had literally no eyes, just black voids.
Hey Pooh, how are you? They took my f***ing eyes.
With the game in this state, the release date was set just 1 year out. Some of the early trailer issues will be fixed closer to release, though definitely not all. In my opinion, if your game is in a state where the characters you plan on showing off in the trailer literally don't even have eyes yet, you're not ready to release a trailer and set the release date 1 year out. Just another one of those things that Pokemon gets the pass on that any other fan base would never let live down. It seemed like Pokemon was a lot more interested in the insanely smart release window opportunity I outlined earlier than releasing either of these games in a finished state. Not too unlike some other games the industry has seen in recent years. Maybe it wasn't going to be this way though, only time would tell after it released. Perhaps it wouldn't release rushed at all and truly would be the incredible breath of fresh air that fans have been waiting for. Let's start talking about the game of Pokemon Legends Arceus. To give us a proper frame of reference to analyze Legends Arceus, we're starting with the story this time before everything else. Help us understand what the game is that we're playing here. Here's a quick summary of the story, a full spoilers alert, and I mean if you really want to experience Legends Arceus spoiler-free, this whole video from this point onward is probably best saved until after you've done so. It's an isekai, a word I never knew the meaning of until about a year ago, a story where you're summoned to another world. Arceus summons you to this world and changes your smartphone into an Arc phone. It's in another world with my god phone. Sometimes he'll even send you some texts. You're doing great, sweetie. It's implied that you're a trainer from modern-day Sinnoh who's been summoned back to the past, when it was known as Hisui. You might even be the same trainer from BDSP. This was a time before Pokemon and people lived together, when people were still afraid of Pokemon, viewing them as dangerous wild creatures that threaten their way of life. The first Pokeballs have just recently been developed, and research is being done into making the first Pokedex. After falling out of a time-space portal thingamabob, which have been causing their fair share of issues around here lately it seems, you're taken to Jubilife Village. But people are hella sketched out by these time-space portals and the problems they've been causing, so you have to prove your usefulness or else be left to die in the harsh environments. So with a starter Pokemon in hand, you set out across Hisui to help with filling the decks, as you're a natural at Pokemon catching and battling, almost as if you're from a time where this is commonplace. You eventually meet the Diamond and Pearl clans, both of whom claim to worship the true god of Sinnoh, the one who rules over time or space, respectively. This has caused conflict between these nations in the past, because whether it be historically or in fiction, worshipping different gods very often tends to lead to conflict, sadly. Along the way, you meet several allies who help you on your journey, such as the Professor and his assistant, the Galaxy team, and Volo, who helps you search for the legendary bars of plates. You're also not the only one isekai'd to this world, as Ingo of the Unova Battle Subway has also found himself in this era, and for some time now considering his position as warden in tattered old clothes. You venture across the land, quelling the noble Pokemon that the time-space rifts have been causing to fly into a rage. Eventually the problems get worse, however, and the Galaxy team commander decides that because you must be tied to it since you fell from one, you are banned from the daycare until you can prove your innocence beyond a shadow of a doubt. You set out with Volo and your leader of the two clans of choice, which is Adaman, obviously, to seek out the legendary Lake Trio to obtain the Red Chain and call on the gods of Hisui, prove your innocence, and bring peace to the land. The hero obtains the Red Chain and sets out to Spear Pillar, where either Dialga or Palkia is summoned depending on which clan leader you chose. The Red Chain helps control its power and allows the hero to catch the deity. However, the other deity is even more pissed off than the first one, and comes out to throw an even greater tantrum, and with no more Red Chain, you're not able to quell it. So, with the help of the first legendary, you're able to make a special Pokeball that can catch its counterpart, and you set off for the final battle. The other deity changes into its origin form, which is meant to make it look closer to the design of Arceus. After a final battle, you're able to catch the other deity. The Diamond and Pearl clans make up after realizing both their deities were real, and peace is restored to the land. That's the first ending. In postgame, you learn that you still have many plates to collect, and that they are somehow tied to Arceus, the one who brought you here. Perhaps that is where you'll get your answers. Volo guides you along towards obtaining the rest of the plates, which almost always seem to be held by a powerful Pokemon such as legendaries or noble Pokemon. And so begins the quest to catch the remaining legendaries and gain all the plates. With all the soap varieties in hand, the hero and Volo head back to Spear Pillar. Volo reveals some things about the third deity, who had been banished and forgotten, and on arrival at Spear Pillar, reveals that he had the final plate and wanted to lure you here to take the plates you gathered, meet Arceus himself, and erase this world to create a new one.
He's pulling his cock out!
You defeat Volo's team, but it turns out he's not alone. He's been secretly simping for the third deity that was banished long ago, Giratina.
And who's that? Oh, it's Mr. MVP! Simp!
Who you must now face off against not once but twice after it changes to its origin form. After defeating Volo and Giratina, it's revealed that Volo enlisted Giratina's help to screw around with time and space to cause Dialga and Palkia to go berserk and open up the time-space rifts that have been damaging the land. Volo wanted to recreate the world, and Giratina sought vengeance against Arceus, and so the two worked together. Volo realizes that he has lost, gives you the final plate, being that which was given to him by Giratina, and sets out. This is the second ending. Shortly after the battle with Volo, you've got a text. Who could it be? Oh right, it's God. God tells you to meet all the Pokemon, which essentially means catching all the other Pokemon in the Hisui region, and then you can meet Arceus and get the true final ending. So, after our hero spends countless hours off camera catching all the Pokemon, they can finally meet Arceus. Arceus battles the hero, is like, I was right to bring you to this world after all, and gives you a fraction of his power by essentially creating another instance of himself that you take along your journey with you. Let's go through the positives of this story first and foremost. Starting things out, I do really like the idea of it being an isekai. Maybe that's just because of how many hours I have in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon though. Not only are you as the player completely new to this world, but the playable character is as well, which helps you share this common ground and make you feel closer as being the playable character, rather than just controlling the protagonist experiencing their own story, if that makes sense. You're both experiencing this world for the first time. Its challenges, its difficulties, its joys, its conflicts. You're in it together. The characters in this story are definitely really charming, though it's something that we're going to delve into with more detail in the visuals chapter. The Diamond and Pearl clan conflict. Out of any games out there to make a religious commentary, Pokemon was one of the last ones I imagined doing so. I've spoken in several video essays before, most notably being the one on the accuracy of historical video games, about how games will make arguments in myriad different ways. So, to see Pokemon portraying this bad blood between different clans because they worship different gods, it doesn't take much to draw the parallels here to our own world's history up until today. By the end, we find out that both clans were correct. Both their gods did indeed exist, and they were fighting one another because of a difference in beliefs that neither of them were in the wrong in. What kind of arguments do you think Legends Arceus is trying to make here about religious conflicts? This game gets pretty serious for a main series Pokemon game. Even Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, one of the most serious Pokemon games I've ever seen, will use terms like get rid of us for good instead of killed, or disappear instead of die. It carries a serious tone, but a censored one. Legends Arceus just has no restraints to give. You're a stranger to us. Be useful to us, or we kick you out and the wildlife is going to kill you. The people remain skeptical of you because you fell out of one of the things that look like Pokken Tournament Darkrai's cracks in the sky, and people know that these things have been causing some trouble and causing the noble Pokemon to go berserk. So after things worsen, Commander Kamado banishes you unless you can prove your innocence beyond reasonable doubt, because clearly somebody never taught this guy that correlation does not equal causation. Something also not taught to a lot of the Pokemon community. When we're on our own, we have this scene where we meet another seemingly on their own, a Shinx. There's some joy to be had here in this chance encounter, though it can only be brief, as Shinx has a family to get back to, whereas you have no one. And now the negatives of the story. I feel like the whole idea of literally nobody has been good at doing this until you came along is a bit forced. You're a complete stranger to the Galaxy team, but you'll catch Pokemon like they've never seen before, and they want your help. Come on, it's not like it's really all that hard to throw a Pokeball. And how have you not seen anybody else able to do this fieldwork when you literally have those in your village here who seem perfectly capable of doing so? There's even those outside the village who seem pretty darn adept. But I guess you don't want to show favoritism to either of those clans, so working with anybody from the Diamond or Pearl clan on the Pokédex is out of the question. But a random stranger who just got isekai'd? Oh, that's fair game. What about Ingo? He's another isekai. I'm sure he's pretty adept with Pokemon, especially considering he became one of the wardens. Maybe it's not worth consideration because he's affiliated with one of the clans, or he's busy as a warden. You being the only one they can count on to make any real progress on the Pokédex is just incredibly convenient. Like, I understand that it goes with the narrative of you being from a timeline where Pokemon and people are coexisting together is a lot more standard and you're a lot more used to this. But the extent to which everybody else is just so completely useless is just insane. Also, when it comes to being isekai'd, what's the deal with Ingo anyway? This is just never explained. He's just been brought to the past here as well because reasons? Even the player being brought to this world is never truly explained. You save the world, face Arceus, and Arceus is just like, it seems I was right to isekai you here, and that's pretty much it. You're implied to potentially be the same trainer from the original Diamond and Pearl, considering your adeptness with Pokemon, the modern era you came from, and that the playable characters are the exact same selection as Bug Diamond and Shipped Early Pearl. They could have played into this and had Arceus say something like, after you quelled the disaster with space and time in your own era, I felt you would be the best choice to save this era too. And it seems I was right. But nope, All we get is, I was right to choose you, and that's it, like some generic chosen one mumbo jumbo. I guess it's not too surprising for Pokemon, but it's still disappointing. What about the era that you came from? Did you leave family and friends behind? Would you like to go back when your role here is complete? It could have been like a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity situation, where it becomes a bit of a moral dilemma. Should you stay here with the new connections you made, or is it right to go back to where you came from? In Legends Arceus, you're thrust into this unknown world against your will to save time and space as Arceus' unpaid intern. And then by the time your work is done, you're just completely stuck here whether you like it or not. Though I mean, if the world I came from looked like this, I think I'd want to do everything in my power not to go back. I think I'd rather go to almost any other game world. And from a gameplay standpoint, the player does need to stay in this world if you want to continue having an actual video game to play here. Unless of course it pulled a Fire Emblem 3 Houses and was just like, yep, that save file is just unusable now until the end of time. So while at the end of the day the player does need to stick around in this world, it would have helped wrap things up a lot nicer to at least present the protagonist with the choice, especially after how much this game goes on with the theme of family and connections. Do you want to return to the world you came from, or stay here? Stay with your new family, who've been skeptical of you, put you through hell and back, and at one point even prefer to leave you abandoned, but who you later reconciled with, who apologized to you, and who, together with, you were able to save the region. It would bring up a moral dilemma at the end. They've forgiven you, but can you forgive them? It could have easily been a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon situation with you seemingly going back to your own world at the end. Credits roll, but after the credits you ask to remain in this world with your new family, and the game ends with everyone together. But instead, you just stick around in this world with no choice and no question of your loyalty toward those who betrayed you. Volo is a fascinating character and surprise antagonist, who is foreshadowed to be so in a few instances. However, after he reveals his villainous plot to recreate the world, well, it's very reminiscent of a villain from another time. Cyrus wanted to recreate the world, for reasons that are never explained. He's a villain purely for the purposes of being a villain in the games, despite him getting more humanization and believable convictions in other media. He's a cookie-cutter villain who only exists because, well, we need to have a plot somehow. After this major problem with Cyrus, Game Freak thought it was a great idea to make a new villain who also wants to recreate the universe, also with zero explanation as to why. This world is imperfect. It should be remade. He also wants to meet Arceus, and I mean, you can tell by his cosplay he's clearly an Arceus stan. He looks like the kind of guy that would buy and drink some gamer god bathwater. But why? Where did any of these feelings come from? Why does Volo feel so compelled to meet Arceus and recreate the world? Who knows? It's a Pokemon game after all. Why should you expect characters with virtually any depth as opposed to villains that exist purely to be villains? As well with unexplained villains, why was Giratina banished anyway? I know that old Pokédex entries say that it was banished for its violence, supposedly, but we really don't know anything more than that. We see Giratina here aiming for vengeance against Arceus, but maybe this would be a bit more believable if, I don't know, you actually told us why you were banished in the first place? Who is Giratina as a character, really? Speaking of things that aren't explained, the new forms for Dialga and Palkia, which aim to bring them closer in design to Arceus. Why did they suddenly become more akin to Arceus when they fall into a rage? Who knows? And the Galaxy team, how did they ever become Team Galactic? Because you'd think that an organization that's all about maintaining the peace and doing research, transitioning into an organization that wants to destroy the world, is a pretty big shift that seems pretty important for a plot. But apparently it's not important enough for Pokemon to explain it, so I mean... The wannabe Shadow Triad that, honestly, I forget the name of. As you race to save the world, they stand in your way one final time. You defeat them, and Arena implies that they were really just trying to help. They put up an attitude of being the bad guys, but secretly are compassionate and just want to help you. Literally how? They just stalled you as you raced against the clock to save the world, and contributed absolutely nothing that remotely helps you. Let's look at an actual good example of a villain in a story putting up a front, but being humanized, and having a change of heart to help you, but still needing to put up this same front. I'm talking about Gengar from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team. He villainizes you in order to save his own skin, making you out to be the one behind his past sins. He's come this far, it's too late to change now. This is how he is, he's too far gone. Now he must commit to this path. But on learning how his old partner of Gardevoir truly feels about him, he runs off crying, and eventually comes to realize that it's never too late to do good. The teleport gem that allows the heroes to get to the final dungeon, it was crafted by the collective power of Xatu, Alakazam, and a third Pokemon who was a ghost type. Who could it be? It seems they already left. After defeating the final boss, the heroes find themselves at death's door. Now is his chance to finally be rid of you for good. He's going to drag you into the dark world. But as he's dragging you, that's strange. He took a wrong path somewhere. This isn't the dark world. This isn't like him to get lost like this. Whatever. I'll just dump you here. That's good enough. Where he dumps you off, though, is where you're safe and reunited with all your friends. Gengar's pride won't let him openly admit he was wrong, drop the front of the villain trying to drag you down. But he has this level of humanity that drives him to be a force for good in his own unique way, and trying his best not to let on to you that he's had a change of heart. And by the end, it's thanks to him that the heroes are both able to achieve their goal and survive the ordeal. The Three Stooges over here, meanwhile, directly hinder your journey even at the end. We're on a time limit here, the world is ending, and you're here standing in our way because what? You know, if you're the reason we don't save the world in time, you're all screwed too, you absolute fools. Oh, but they were secretly trying to help and do genuinely care about us. Yeah, real helpful of them to stall us from saving the region. This makes absolutely no sense and serves zero purpose from the plot. In fact, it detracts from the plot by shoehorning in such a nonsensical point like this. But it's a story for children. You shouldn't expect it to be good. I should at least expect it to make sense. And it's especially important if you're telling a story that's supposed to teach lessons to a young audience, that you're teaching meaningful lessons that helps them develop, not nonsensical hogwash. It's also worth noting that most Pokemon players aren't even kids. I've seen a lot of people say that the plot of Legends Arceus feels very inspired by the Mystery Dungeon series. Yeah, maybe. If the story writers frantically looked at like a SparkNotes Mystery Dungeon summary like they were desperately cramming for an exam they had in 20 minutes, taking a general outline but almost none of the actual depth behind it. They always say in story writing, show, don't tell. Well, in this case, what they show and what they tell are complete contradictions to each other. All in all, this game does have an interesting plot, with aspects with incredible symbolism or arguments about our world, along with twists and turns that make you pop off, it's so dang cool. But it's kept from its full potential by explaining little more than the bare minimum. It tells you the story and events of the here and now, but paints no picture for what's led up before the events of the game, and what follows after the game. And leaves you wanting to truly get to understand these characters, to know their convictions as people, rather than just tools to have a plot at all. Now that we're familiar with the world in which this takes place, let's discuss the gameplay. First off, it's something very different to the traditional Pokemon formula, which had been gradually getting stale over time, even after they kept on trying to introduce gimmicks to try to spice things up. Pokemon exist around the world in open areas for you to explore. You can battle them in the traditional Pokemon way, or hide out in the grass and chuck Pokeballs while catching them unawares, or maybe after baiting them out with a berry to munch. So, while in series past there was only one way to go about catching Pokemon over and over again until the end of time, Legends Arceus lets you get creative with catching Pokemon however you feel most comfortable, whether that be the classic way or new ways. You handle how you interact with the Pokemon of this world in your own unique way, giving so much more control to the player and creating a far superior gameplay loop in terms of catching Pokemon than ever seen before in series past. The world itself is split up into 5 main areas, one main hub, and one kind of side hub. These areas were actually pretty fun to explore around for the most part, and I'd find myself putting off the main objective just to continue exploring around for a while. A lot of people were looking forward to a fully open-world Pokemon game, though this isn't necessarily the case in Legends Arceus. These areas are all completely separate from one another. It's not like a game like Xenoblade Chronicles X where the entire world truly exists without any loading screens separating them. This is a bit disappointing, but isn't too big a deal. That is, if the fast travel in this game didn't feel like it was an alpha version implemented that was just left in for the full release. Let's say you're in one area, like the Obsidian Fieldlands, and you want to go to, say, the Diamond Clan village in another area, because you just need to go and take in Adaman's glory. You would think you'd be able to find it on your map and fast travel to the corresponding place, right? Nope. First you need to go to one of the camps in your own area in order to report your findings to the professor and be able to go back. Even if you don't have anything to report, you still have to either talk to the professor to go back, or just go to the loading zone beside the camp. Also, for whatever reason, the game gives you two different options to do the exact same thing. Professor Laventon even has the exact same dialogue for both. And then, before you can go anywhere else from there, you first need to travel back to the main hub of Jubilife Village. And now you can go to any of the 5 areas. Alright, so now you can go to the Diamond Clan village, right? Nope! When you initially fast travel into an area, you can only go to one of the Galaxy Team camps, despite the fact that there exist fast travel points to places like the Diamond Clan village that you might actually want to go to. Alright, so you're fast traveling into an area, so you'd think with a map open you'd be able to select the location you want to fast travel to, right? As is the case when you're traveling to different locations in the same area. That way you can choose a place closest to where you actually want to go, as most places on the map you'll need to actually travel to yourself from the closest fast travel point. Nope, you instead just get a list of all the Galaxy Team camps' names to choose from, and that's it. Dude, I'm just trying to casually play this game and have fun. I don't have the map locations and names of every single Galaxy Team camp memorized. I feel like every time I need to get to some place in an area, I'm put on the spot with a surprise quiz testing my memory. Hey, and welcome back to the game show, Who Wants to Play the Video Game? We have a spicy new question lined up for our contestant here. So, if you want to get to the Sonorous Path in Coronet Highlands, is the closest Galaxy Team camp A, the Highlands camp, B, the Mountain camp, or C, the Summit camp? Yeah, that's a tough one. Can I phone a friend? Sorry, you already used your phone a friend on the last question of how to evolve Ursaring into Ursaluna. Dang, yeah. You could still ask the audience. Arceus, no. Have you seen some of the stuff they say? I think I'm gonna have to go with A, Highlands camp. Final answer. I'm sorry, but the correct answer is actually B, Mountain camp. Damn it! And you know what happens when you get a question wrong around here. We're taking you back to Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. What? No! So anyway, it's pretty dumb. On the fast travel screen here, you can literally zoom into the map and show the local area with no fast travel markers selectable anywhere. You can't choose an area on the map to travel to by clicking it, despite that literally being how it works when traveling locally. You need to come out of the screen and check from the list. So you've got two options. Memory game, or check the map anytime before you travel. So, let's say you finally travel into the area that has the Diamond Clan. Well, now you're at a Galaxy Team camp, since that's all the game let you travel to. So now you need to open the map screen and travel to the Diamond Clan village, which you didn't have the option to go to from the get-go. So, let me get this all straight. I'm in a different area and want to take in the godsend that is Adaman. I need to fast travel to a Galaxy Team camp. Loading screen. Being at the camp allows me to select returning to Jubilife Village. Loading screen. I immediately turn around to go back to the gate to travel to a different area. I can't travel straight to the Diamond Clan village despite it having its own fast travel point, so I need to go to a Galaxy Team camp instead. Loading screen. Open my map. Fast travel to Diamond Clan village. Loading screen. Then I run over to Adaman, and only now am I finally here. So, from a different area to go to somewhere like the Diamond Clan village, I need to go through 4 loading screens?
Is this some kind of twisted joke?
This could have easily been solved by allowing the player to fast travel to any fast travel point in the world by selecting it from the map screen, rather than restricting this feature to only being able to do so in the area you're already in. What purpose does it serve being designed this way? It's like Game Freak likes making things more tedious for the player than they need to be. Now, also keep in mind here, Pokemon has had the ability for the player to fast travel to any fast travel point in the world ever since its first release in 1996 on the Game Boy. It's just 2022's Legends Arceus specifically they decided to take this away, for some reason. Next up, how about the new battles and combat? This game introduced Agile Style and Strong Style moves. Agile Style is less power but greater speed, and Strong Style is more power but less speed. You see, Pokemon is no longer turn-based in the sense that you both put in your inputs at once, and whoever has the greater speed goes first. Rather, it's now a back and forth turn-based, and it's possible to get multiple turns before the opponent gets theirs. The more you use Agile Style moves, the sooner your chance to get 2 actions at once will come. The more you use Strong Style moves, the sooner your opponent's chance to use multiple turns before yours. Moves like Quick Attack and Aqua Jet also seem to have this Agile Style move kind of speed to them, which gives these moves a new value. This is actually a really neat system and adds a new breath of fresh air to the battle systems that have been getting old for a while. For the past several generations, Pokemon had been introducing gimmicks to spice up the battle system, Mega Evolution, Z-moves, Dynamax, and always immediately trashing them after the generation had passed. But maybe what Pokemon really needed was a battle system overhaul to really spice things up like this. And this new system also includes a turn tracker that lets you know the coming turns for you and your opponent, similar to Octopath Traveler, letting you plan out your actions ahead and see what effect the kinds of moves you use will have on the turn order. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, this tracker doesn't even work. Reason being, it doesn't account for the opponent doing anything to change their own speed. It doesn't account for opponent Agile Style or Strong Style, or moves like Quick Attack and Aqua Jet. So despite the game telling you the opponent is about to use one move, so you've planned out surviving this turn. Just kidding, pranked, look, there's the camera. Opponent just used Agile Style into Strong Style to take out your Pokemon in one fell swoop. So while I do like the AI pulling off crazier tactics like this, what I don't appreciate is a turn tracker that encourages you to prepare for a case that doesn't even happen a lot of the time. So it can be irksome when the turn tracker doesn't work because it doesn't account for possible outcomes. But sometimes it doesn't work just because it doesn't work. No turn order changing moves needed. So maybe I should lead out with like baby doll eyes? Please be paralyzed, please be paralyzed. Yes! The RNG! Wait, you got it again anyway? It didn't say that you were gonna act again. The freaking turn thing literally doesn't even display properly. Something else that doesn't quite work correctly is accuracy. For sure, at least in regards to Strong Style and Agile Style moves. Take Sleep Powder, for example. It's 80% accuracy by default, but if you Strong Style, it becomes 100% accuracy. Are you kidding me? When you use Strong Style, it's supposed to have 100% accuracy! Look at this! Accuracy 100! Game Freak, do you not know how numbers work? Also, I don't know what math this game does to determine whether a move is going to hit or not, but it feels like it must be something vastly different than just the percentages that it shows you it is. Oh, come on! That's a 95% accurate move! I thought I would be able to go twice here. Come on! I missed 2 95s in a row? What is happening? I'm dodging 2 85s in a row. What is this RNG? You have actually got to be kidding me right now. Let's talk about the Pokédex. Rather than catching a Pokemon and now you have that Pokédex entry, you now have a list of tasks to do. This often ranged from number caught at certain times of day, number defeated or defeated with a certain move, number of times you've seen it use a certain move, or number of times you've seen it use Agile or Strong Style, number evolved, so on. Once you get to Research level 10, you now have the Dex entry for that Pokemon, and if you fill out all the nodes here, then that Pokemon's Dex data is 100%ed. It can actually be pretty satisfying to do. One of the key reasons video games can be so engaging is through the feeling of progress, so having clearly quantifiable progress makes for a satisfying gameplay experience. Filling the Pokédex is a good time, most of the time. It comes with a few problems. For one, the up arrows next to some items. As far as I remember, the game never explains what this actually means. What it means is that you get double research points for that category, I think. So it would have been nice had the Pokédex been properly explained. It'd also feel like a lot more care was taken to it if Game Freak actually understood how numbers worked. You see, there's sometimes categories that have a more specific version, such as number caught and number caught at night, or number defeated and number defeated with water type moves, for example. If you do the more specific one, it'll count for the generic one as well. So if you defeat this Pokemon with a water type move, you'll get a point for defeating it with a water type move, and a point for defeating. So, as makes sense, most of the time you need to do more of the generic one than the specific one, such as defeat 20 and defeat 10 with water type moves, for example. But sometimes, for whatever reason, Game Freak will ask you to do more of the specific one than the generic one. Take Golbat, for example. Number caught, 15. Number caught at night, 20. Number defeated, 15. Number defeated with ice type moves, 25. Number defeated with psychic type moves, 25. Why would you ever design something this way? It makes for such a frustrating and annoying experience being handled in such a way. Let's say I caught a Golbat during the day. Okay, what was even the point in me doing so just now when I need to catch way more at night and fill both of these categories anyway? So I just completely wasted my time by catching this Golbat during the day. I defeated a Golbat with something that wasn't an ice or psychic type move. Guess I wasted my time if I need to defeat way more with those specific types anyway. This might not be too much of a concern for a super casual playthrough or if you're only aiming for research level 10. But my heart goes out to any completionists out there for how frustrating this must be. Another frustrating thing for completionists would be the sheer amount of things the game asks you to do. Some of these task counts get absurdly high. Take Zoroark, for example. Times you've seen it use an Agile style move. 70? This wouldn't be as big of an issue if it worked for another problem. Unlike series past, you literally cannot turn off combat animations in this game. So if you're just grinding for filling your decks, you can't turn off combat animations to make the grind easier. No, they really want to make sure you fully appreciate all the animations until the end of time, even if it's just monotonous grinding. If you're in the loop of battling a random Pokemon, taking it out with a stronger Agile style move, it's defeated, so you quickly run up to the next Pokemon and repeat. How long does this loop take? So if we take this subsection of the recorded footage here, where this begins the moment the Pokeball makes contact with the Wurmple over there to initiate this battle, and this moment over here is when the Pokeball initiates contact with the Shinx over here to start that battle, the duration of this clip is 22 seconds. So 22 seconds 70 times is nearly 26 minutes of just doing this loop over and over again, for one out of many entries for this one Pokemon. There are Pokemon with requirements even higher than this. Like, there's a lot that require 40 strong style and 40 agile style, or take Garchomp with 100 strong style moves. Just how long does Game Freak expect you to go through strong style and agile style move animations if you want to 100% this game? You know what? Let's actually answer that question, how about? First, let's add up all the deck's agile style and strong style move counts. After going through the entire Pokédex one entry at a time and adding up all the strong and agile style listings, I found that if you want to 100% this game, Game Freak expects you to sit through the full move animation for strong and agile style moves 6,350 times. So we multiply that by approximately 22 seconds each, and you get 139,700 seconds, which is 2,328.3 minutes, which is 38.8 hours of just sitting through completely unskippable and untoggleable animations. You know what? Since we've come this far, let's determine the total time it takes for all moves in general. No agile style or strong style needed. Legends Arceus asks its completionists to go through at least 11,740 moves. Because we're not sitting through the strong/agile style animations, we can cut that out of the equation. I'd say the animation for those is about 2 seconds, so instead of 22 seconds, let's multiply by 20 seconds. This gives us a total of 234,800 seconds, 3,914 minutes, or over 65 hours. It is worth noting that this is an approximation and does not account for factors that would reduce the time, such as battling multiple Pokemon at once, and battling Pokemon that can be hit multiple times before being defeated. But it also does not account for factors that would increase the time, such as managing your boxes, searching for the Pokemon you need, changing your party, changing your current attacks, missing your attacks, restoring your HP and PP, fast traveling and reloading area Pokemon to have more Pokemon to face, and human error of misinputting or not completing this cycle perfectly on every run through. And also doesn't account for a factor that could both decrease or increase the time taken depending on the circumstances, being how long it actually takes to get from one battle to the next. Though, considering the example time was done with a Wurmple and Shinx really close to each other, I'd say the example we used was more biased towards calculating a lower time. When in consideration of all the factors which may change the calculated time, I'd say this math is clearly biased towards a lower calculated time. And these are just the move seeing requirements. Never mind every other task in the Pokédex. Again, this is the kind of thing that won't affect most players, just completionists. But it's been a long time since I've seen a single player game expect so much of your time doing completely mindless tasks as punishment for being a completionist. Look, I don't mind games being difficult to 100%, but if the word that best describes the journey to 100%ing your game is tedious, then I think your game has a problem. In terms of some of these other dex categories, some of them are really out there. I think my favorite is seeing Azelf self-destruct 40 times, which is also one of the boosted research categories. Ah, there you are. I need you to do something of vital importance for the Pokédex.
What is it, Professor?
Legendary being of willpower. I need you to get it to self-destruct 40 times.
But why, Professor?
Because it's really important to get to better understand the legendary being of willpower. Please, this is important science, my girl. You did agree to help fill the Pokédex, did you not?
Is it really that important?
My boy, girl, whatever you are, this research is what all true completionists strive for.
Someone's about to have a very bad day.
Ow!
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
You fool!
Related to the Pokédex, one of the requirements for truly finishing the game is to catch every Pokémon, as that is a prerequisite for facing Arceus. While catching Pokemon in this game is typically easier than it's ever been in series past, there are a few in there that are a massive pain to get, and you need to be spending a lot of time around what are called space-time distortions. Space-time distortions are actually pretty neat under normal circumstances. They'll sometimes appear for a limited time, where you can collect shards, stardust, and special evolution items, while Pokemon, often rarer ones, are frequently spawning in. If you see a space-time distortion in the distance, it can be fun to dip on over and get some items and Pokemon. Where space-time distortions become annoying is where they become mandatory for catching all the Pokemon, and therefore actually being able to finish the game. You see, several Pokemon only appear in space-time distortions, such as Magnemite, Magneton, Shieldon, and Cranidos. Eevee can exist out in the world, but pretty infrequently, so needing all the evolutions, I found the majority of my Eevees through space-time distortions where they were pretty regular. The thing about space-time distortions is you can't just get one to spawn. There's no way to induce it or a consumable item that you can use to create a space-time distortion. So to beat the game, you need to wait. Wait. And wait some more, until one hopefully appears. Hopefully has the Pokemon you need, and hopefully you can catch it. By far, the worst experience of this for me was Cranidos. I had a space-time distortion appear where I caught Shieldon, but no Cranidos, so I went back to waiting. After waiting for over 20 minutes, I realized that I should start recording this so I'd have footage to show here and talking about this, show how long the waiting can really take. Half an hour passes after starting recording until one finally appears, so I go there and I save before the event begins. I find a Cranidos and send out one of my Pokemon to use a non-stab move. Well, it gets one shot, so I reload the game. As it turns out, you can't save and reset these distortions, so I was back to waiting. Another 20 minutes pass before another distortion appears. This time I use a move that Cranidos resists to whittle it down. After which, it uses Head Smash, a move with recoil damage, and takes itself out. Another Cranidos opportunity missed, and I still need one of these things to actually beat the game. I did eventually get a Cranidos, after an hour and a half altogether. Again, you need to do this to actually finish the game, outside of trading at least. Thank goodness I'm not a completionist, as this is so much harder on them. Take Magnemite for example, which only appears during space-time distortions. Catch 15, defeat 15. You need to run into this in distortions at least 30 times? If it's half an hour between distortions and you run into one Magnemite per each, that's 15 hours of distortion hunting Magnemite for 2 of its dex categories alone. While these space-time distortions are pretty cool, making waiting around for something you can't control a requirement to beat this game and having some insanely ludicrous conditions for completionists is just ridiculous. The baby Pokemon were also a bit annoying and tedious to obtain, needing to reload areas several times until one eventually spawned. There's actually one more Pokemon even more annoying to get than the space-time distortion Pokemon. Spiritomb is a Pokemon tied to a side quest, one in which you need to collect 107 wisps around the whole world. When you collect one, the game tells you how many are left in that area, which is nice. How do you check this information again though? You can't.
Write that down, write that down!
It's not like Breath of the Wild's Korok seeds where if you zoom in at one point in the map where one is, it'll show you a visual indicator to tell you one was here and you've collected it already. This means if you have even one wisp left for this side quest and have no idea what ones you've collected already and what areas are clear, you literally need to hit up every location in the entire world where a wisp normally is until you eventually find it. This is made even harder by the fact that sometimes the render distance on these wisps is absolute trash. Sometimes you'll be able to see a wisp so far away, but for other ones you often need to be like right on top of it for it to show up. So just flying above each location with Braviary to see if it's one you have yet or not isn't good enough. You need to land at all 107 sites to make sure you have that one collected, since the game makes no effort to tell you which ones you do and don't have yet. This quest wouldn't be such a problem if the game actually handled the tracking for this quest in a meaningful way. Or it wasn't necessary for beating the game, outside of just trading for Spiritomb, that is. Another quest required for beating the game is that of the Weather Trio, Tornadus, Thunderous, and Landorus. These three are pretty slippery to get a hold of, as they'll constantly run or attack you if they see you, and you need to throw enough junk at them to take out their shields and stun them, of which results may vary, as I swear half the time the stuff you throw does nothing, and then you start a battle with them. Tornadus and Thunderous become especially annoying as you can only find them during certain weather conditions, and there's no way to manually change the weather, so you need to keep on resetting the area over and over and over again until you eventually get it. Catching these three isn't even enough. To advance this quest, you need to get to research level 10 for each, which involves, you guessed it, using specific moves and a whole bunch of strong or agile style. Once you've completed their dex entries, you're introduced to the new fourth of these legendaries who you can now go catch.
What the fuck, is that a fucking cat?
And let's just say, it's no exaggeration to say it is probably one of the most annoying Pokemon I have ever tried to catch in this IP. Again, it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't a requirement to beat the game unless you trade. Let's move on to another subject, Ride Pokemon. After being introduced by Sun and Moon as a replacement for HMs, I mean, I guess it was introduced by X and Y and Auras, but not as an HM replacement. It's great to see Ride Pokemon back again, not just in the place of HMs to get rid of obstacles, but as incredible tools that make traversal around these vast spaces much easier. Wardeer is fast, and outside of running has pretty bouncy movement like you'd expect a creature like this would have, and it's pretty fun. Ursaluna, Basculegion is a pretty cool fiche, equipped with a super fun double jump. The fan-made Sonic OC turns you into Nezuko to allow you to climb cliffs better than Breath of the Wild Link ever could, under normal circumstances at least. And Braviary allows you to soar the skies and quickly traverse the land. However, despite being a bird whose main action here is to fly, there exists no button to go up. There's only taking off from the ground, speed up, and go down. There is no go up option, you can only glide. I suppose the reasoning for this is so that the Pokemon that looks like it came out of a bad Sonic game doesn't immediately get invalidated once you get Braviary. It's also after unlocking Braviary that I noticed a lot of invisible walls around. The ones on the edges of the map make enough sense, there's nothing else past that point. But if there's just this mountain separation between two places that are both accessible, then why is there an invisible wall here separating them that I have to go around? This game sucks sometimes. Come on, the quest thing is over there! The ride Pokemon are nice and typically pretty fun to use, and the transition between water, land, and sky is usually pretty natural. If Basculegion swims up to the shore, it'll automatically change to Wordeer. If Braviary descends all the way to land or water, it'll automatically change. Jump into the air off a cliff and you can press a button to switch to Braviary. Press your face up against a wall and you'll have an A button prompt if you want to switch to the Sonic OC, which is really helpful in some cases, incredibly annoying in others. About how, no! Freaking gosh darn it! The buttons of this game! No! God, gosh. What? Ah, Pokeball! I swear to you, I am not trying to make the controls of this game look bad. This is just the way this game plays. Ursaluna acts as the new dowsing machine that I barely used because it's super wonky. Honestly, cycling through the different ride Pokemon, it felt more annoying than anything to have Ursaluna there in the list I needed to cycle through getting to my actually useful ride Pokemon. As well, Basculegion gets a feature none of the other ride Pokemon have, still being able to throw Pokemon and items while riding. You can ride by chucking Pokeballs at wild Pokemon, or sending out your Pokemon and starting battle. You can't do this with any other ride Pokemon. You're riding Wordeer. There's a tree to harvest, so you have to disable your ride Pokemon, throw the Pokeball, mount the ride Pokemon, and keep going. Oh, there's an ore deposit, so disable ride Pokemon, throw the Pokeball, mount the ride Pokemon. It's so incredibly annoying, and turns what would otherwise be a smooth experience into an incredibly clunky one with this constant need for switching back and forth. This could have been easily fixed if other ride Pokemon, or at least Wordeer, allow you to continue throwing things the way Basculegion does. I think it's pretty clear from this design decision that it was probably never intended to let the player continue to throw Pokeballs and items while on ride Pokemon, but they realized they had to for Basculegion at least, because how else are you going to get Pokemon out in the sea? Basculegion has it out of necessity, but because it's not needed on the others, why even bother programming it in? I hate how you can't throw Pokemon from this, how you need to dismount and then you do that and then you do that. When it comes to the ride Pokemon and the general gameplay overall, my goodness is the button mapping of this game awful. With a ride Pokemon, holding down the B button is to run, while pressing the Y button is to jump. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have it the other way around? If you're holding Y to run, then you can click down B with your thumb that's already over it anyway. If you're holding B to run, you specifically need to shift your thumb forward past the button so you can press Y at a moment's notice as well. There exist other Nintendo games on this console that use the former control scheme, games that are probably not infrequent to be played by the same kind of audience. But nah, Pokemon was like Microsoft was with the Xbox controller buttons where they just wanted to be different by giving the good old switcheroo. And these controls are also completely different compared to being off a ride Pokemon. On the ground, running is toggleable by clicking in the left stick, though you can only run so long thanks to an invisible stamina meter that doesn't even last very long, which becomes really annoying in places like Jubilee Village where you can't use ride Pokemon. And the B button here is crouching, when you want to take it slow and sneaky. With the ride Pokemon, however, the slow and sneaky button is now the run button, the complete opposite, and something that you hold rather than toggleable, working completely different than when playing as the trainer. And this resulted in me getting my buttons mixed up all the time, and instinctually when on a ride Pokemon, sometimes I want to take things slow and sneaky, and wind up dashing right into the middle of the Pokemon I wanted to sneak toward. Or as the trainer, I'd sometimes want to start running and instead find myself crouching. And these are far from the only controls it inadvertently designed to screw you up. The menuing of this game is so weird. Rather than a button that opens the full menu with all the different tabs like series past, minus is the button for the map and side quests, plus is the button for ride Pokemon. Up on the D-pad is your menu for items, parties, savings, satchels, and settings on all different tabs. The item menu itself has 2 different tabs for regular items and key items, and down on the D-pad is the Pokédex. It's just so weird. Constantly I'd want to open a menu and just wind up hopping on a ride Pokemon instead. Or before I'd open my menus, I'd have to think for a hot second like, which one is the menu with the settings again? Which one is the one with the side quests again? The buttons for using Pokemon and items in the field gets the job done, but in a kinda wonky way. You press L and R to cycle the currently selected item, and press X to switch between items and Pokemon. So if you want to throw a berry to bait out a Pokemon, then throw a Pokeball at it, you need to cycle all the way over to the berry, throw it, cycle all the way back to the Pokeball, and throw it. It works, but it's clunky. It kinda reminds me of the original Hyrule Warriors. Bosses and special enemies in that game had specific item weaknesses that you could use against them when they give you an opening, and you'd have to cycle all the way over to the item you use on that boss to have it currently equipped. It got the job done, but it was kinda clunky and irksome. So, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity rolls around, and now instead you've got one button you hold, which brings up all 4 Sheikah runes that are assigned to the face buttons, which allows you to use any one of them at a moment's notice in the middle of combat without the irksome switching. Take another example, Smash Bros. Shulk's Monado arts. In Smash 4, you need to continue pressing B until you cycle to the Monado art you wanted. But in Smash Ultimate, you now hold the B button and all 5 Monado arts come up at once, and you can select whichever one based on the way you flick the left stick. It kinda reminds me of Astral Chain, where you have 5 legions you can switch between, and you do so with a menu like this and a flick of the stick to switch to any of your legions on the fly. But then there's 2022's Pokémon Legends Arceus, with its dated control scheme with a cycling through menus that feel like something that had better belong in an early to mid 2010s era game. Why couldn't you assign some of these to things that you can equip on the fly? Or at least choose what items go on the cycling bar, rather than the default put everything in your inventory that's throwable onto it, making cycling such a pain. Or take pressing X to switch between Pokemon and items. It works, but when you're zooming through the world interacting with so many things, it can be easy to not always be selected on what you think you are. I've yet to see anybody play this game who hasn't accidentally thrown an empty Pokeball at a rock or tree trying to harvest it before. A ride Pokemon outside of the automatic transitions is also cycling, which can sometimes be a bit clunky getting to the specific ride Pokemon you need. This is made worse by the fact that, for whatever reason, you take significant fall damage from the initial takeoff height Braviary has. This means that if you're in a tight spot trying to escape death and frantically cycle to a specific ride Pokemon, but you stay selected on Braviary for a moment too long, guess you'll die. Was there really nobody at Game Freak who said, you know, maybe when riding Braviary, the player shouldn't take fall damage from the initial takeoff height? Another little fun fact about the menuing, turns out if you want to take Ingo's challenge of battling with just one Pokemon, it doesn't actually let you select the specific Pokemon you want from your party or boxes, despite the fact that it pulls up this menu that shows your full party and boxes. Instead, the game just locks you out of it until you've completely emptied your party, save for the one specific Pokemon you want to use. What happened to being able to click a Pokemon to select it for special battle modes like Pokemon's been doing for the past couple decades now? Or things like the photo taking menu. The options are kept in the same format as every other multi-choice thing in the game, as a simple, short UI list. But it can only hold so many items, so here's a few options, and the option to check out other pages for other options. They really couldn't be bothered to create a new window for the photo mode to be able to see all the options at once. I was programming stuff like that in like the 10th grade. But yeah, Pokemon fans just have wildly unrealistic expectations, am I right? Between the button mapping and questionable design choices, I don't know that I ever fully got used to the UI and menuing of this game, even after over 70 hours. It really feels like a proof of concept version that somehow got shipped. Quest tracking in this game. My goodness, it has to be one of the worst quest tracking systems I've ever seen. On the Trail of Giratina. I don't think activating the guide does anything. It freaking marks it as your main thing anyway. So I assume it want me to go to Turnback Cave. It doesn't actually mark it. Freaking, so when you don't hit guide, it automatically guides you, and when you do hit guide, it doesn't guide you? Are you kidding me right now? New requests to accept are marked on the map, and once they're accepted, you can only have one currently active quest tracked at once. Alright, pretty standard so far. But where Legends differs from other games is that many other games will still show the other quest markers on the full map and mini-map. It's only the active one that will have its information displayed on screen or on top of the map, as well as an objective marker similar to the main story objective that shows its direction and distance at all times. When the other quest markers are still at least marked on the map, this helps you do multiple side quests at once. Or maybe while you were out exploring, you just so happened to get the required thing for this one quest you accepted. So when you're in the hub, you see this icon on the map that says there's a quest you can advance with this person here. So it's like, I should go talk to this person while I'm on my way through anyway. But wait about, not my active quest, but I can make progress in it anyway, because unlike Legends Arceus, this game handles side quests in a meaningful way. But in Legends Arceus, you only see quest markers at all for your active quest. And this means that you could continue to be walking past some NPC for like half your playthrough, eventually go to your quest and mark that one quest as active, and the map shows you can give the requested thing to this person here, and it's like, wait, them? Have I really been walking past this quest I could redeem for like half my playthrough? Not only that, but the quest information doesn't actually say where the quest takes place. The only way to find out is by setting it as your active quest. So if you're in an area and wondering if there's any quests you can make some progress in while you're here, to find out, you literally need to go through your full list of accepted side quests, marking each one as your active quest to see if its objective marker is in your current area. Mark that one as active, check the map, nope, not here, go back to the objective screen, sort it, scroll to the next one to check, mark it as active, rinse and repeat for every single side quest in your list to find out if there's any ones you can make progress in while you're here. Sometimes tracked side quests will put an objective marker on the map when you need to go somewhere completely different to advance the side quest. Gosh darn it, I got jebaited! Sometimes the game just refuses to even give you the side quest for whatever reason. Grunk's medicine seems to have worked like a charm, but you just told me this! You just told me this! You just told me this! How do I get the quest? There is a quest icon above your head, and you are not giving me the quest. Are you kidding me? The trainer battles. These are far and few between compared to the main games, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. They're often pretty interesting, and mixing things up by having multiple enemy Pokemon in the mix sometimes is a cool new twist. That final Volo battle along with Giratina, an 8 Pokemon battle against you, that strip had to be one of the coolest battles I've ever seen in Pokemon history. That was incredible. We'll definitely be talking about that a little bit more in the soundtrack section. The Noble Pokemon battles. Now this is something super different. It's kind of like Kitty Dark Souls. You've got rolls that give you invincibility frames, so read the opponent's tells for when they're going to attack and use your roll iframes to avoid it, then capitalize on openings to do some damage. The rolls in this did feel a bit clunky. Maybe it's because I spent last year going through every boss of the whole Dark Souls trilogy, so I got used to how smooth and clean the roll dodges in those games felt. How you attack is with bombs, which is pretty silly reasoning-wise, but gets the job done gameplay-wise. I guess they figured that since they were creating a game so centered around this throw mechanic, they may as well factor it in for the bosses as well. The bosses were actually pretty fun for the most part, though I think my least favorite was Electrode, and my favorite was Arceus. Like, geez, that was a cool fight. How Origin formed Dialga and Palkia, and Arceus would use attacks that are similar but different to some of Arceus's was also a really nice touch and attention to detail, drawing attention to the similarities between these Pokemon. To compare it to some other games with roll invincibility frames, one of my biggest complaints I had when I was playing Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring was the absolutely absurd input buffer. I pressed the roll button a little late, get stabbed, and after he's finished being stabbed, my guy rolls after because of the input I put in 3,000 years ago. I've just left myself open to getting stabbed again. Doesn't matter if I hit the roll button again to try and get out of there, my fate is sealed. In Legends Arceus, the input buffer rarely seemed to cause problems, which was a relief. It would still be nice if more games like Dark Souls or Legends Arceus had an actual option in settings similar to Tales of Arise that lets you change the input buffer. One of the biggest issues with trainer combat in Legends Arceus was if you receive a strong hit, you literally just need to wait on the ground for a couple seconds, just contemplating life, before you finally get back up to get to play again. Looking at the exact duration of this in editing here, this is the frame here that starts with me getting hit, you can tell because I've turned red. And over here is where I finally stood up and I'm ready to fight again. The duration of this is 4 seconds. That doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when you're in the heat of the moment in an intense battle in real-time combat, 4 seconds can really take you out of the heat of the moment. I think the worst part of the combat here though, is even though your controls are completely the same as in the overworld for these bosses, for whatever reason, Game Freak decided to disable the ability to run during bosses. All you can do is casual jog and roll. Long ago, the player's inputs lived together in harmony, but when the world needed the run button the most, it vanished. Why would you disable the run button specifically for the scenarios where the run button is the most important? The next topic, actually catching wild Pokemon in the field. While I do really like the idea of being able to catch Pokemon in the world in your own unique way, as we discussed earlier, it does come off a bit clunky and not work properly at times. Let's say there's a mass outbreak. One of the Pokemon sees you, so you battle it and defeat it. After the battle, you immediately crouch again, so you should be hidden in the tall grass. Doesn't matter. The next Pokemon that spawns in with the outbreak probably saw you, so now you need to battle it. You defeat it, you immediately crouch in the tall grass after the battle so you're not seen. Doesn't matter. The next Pokemon that spawned in the outbreak probably saw you, and so the cycle repeats. As well, when it comes to sneaking up on wild Pokemon, unfortunately, rolling does not count as a silent action, even though one of the early trailers implied that it was going to be, that you'd be able to roll into some tall grass nearby to sneak up on some Pokemon. Nope, you roll and they're going to suddenly look over to see what made that rolling sound. So instead, you just need to crouch walk the whole way. This gets especially irksome when you're on top of a cliff face that you need to go down, as that will often take you out of being crouched and the Pokemon is going to immediately look over at what's sliding down that hill. Then come the Pokeballs. If a Pokemon sees you and decides to fight you, you can no longer throw a Pokeball at it, either start a battle or run. If you land a hit with a Pokeball when it's not trying to fight you, however, it'll go into the Pokeball and you have a chance of catching it. However, so many times I would throw a Pokeball at a Pokemon, only for it to bounce off like nothing happened, and only then does it decide it's seen me and wants to fight. Drive by? What? That was a clear bonk, are you kidding me? Huh. What? And then there's the Featherball series. These Pokeballs are designed with range in mind, only this game has a range limit. What happens outside that range limit, you may ask? Does the Pokeball despawn? Nope, it still keeps going and can make contact with the target just fine, but it'll just bounce off and do nothing. Apparently that's how close I need to get for it to actually function. The Pokeball designed for range, yeah, that's cool. So let me get this straight. There's a maximum range for Pokeballs, even when you gave the players Pokeballs designed specifically for range.
I'm not a smart man.
I'd often find my Feather Balls or Jet Balls just bouncing off the targets despite a clean hit, so I'd have to inch closer and closer until they actually worked. What is the purpose in limiting the functional range, even when the ball itself can fly and make contact so much farther away? As well, the crosshair doesn't even work properly when you're using one of the Featherball series, as you always throw it above the center point. Every other Pokeball the crosshair seems to work just fine for. It's just the Featherball series that goes a smidge above the center of the crosshair, which forces you to start aiming an extra smidge down if you don't want the Pokeball to go directly over what you're aiming for. When you are in range though, the Pokeball hit detection and the hitboxes on the Pokemon themselves is usually pretty good. Emphasis on usually. Sometimes Pokemon just cease to be a part of this ethereal plane. Dang it! I need a blue shell. What the hell? Sometimes your Pokeballs will just pass through into another dimension or something. know what the heck you're doing here, but, Oh! Oh, damn. Ow! What the heck? As for the hitboxes of everything that isn't a Pokemon, I think it's genuinely the worst hitboxes I've ever seen in a video game. What? Are you kidding me? What is this? If you're trying to throw something from just around the side of an object, you probably won't be able to. Oh, E! E! What the hell? One nice feature of going after Pokemon out in the field is the ability to lock on and press down on the D-pad to instantly pull up their Pokédex page and see what items you have left to do. But you can't do this from any ride Pokemon except for Basculegion, which isn't really that surprising at this point. Unfortunately, you need to get really close to be able to lock on and do this, and sometimes the game really doesn't want you switching targets. So Umbreon, huh? Can I target you, please? Gosh diggity darn it, I'm still targeting the Luxray! Why does the targeting system of this game suck? Target the Umbreon, are you kidding me? Target the Umbreon. There we go. If you've started a battle though, there's no way to check the Pokédex from here. So if you're trying to fill out the dex, you better hope you manage to check the dex before starting the battle. Acting in the field here, I do generally like the selection of Pokeballs though, and what kind of style you want to go for. The classic way? Sneaking up behind, or going for range when it works. You can also make Pokeballs yourself with the crafting system, which is handy to be able to use from anywhere. It also made me feel compelled to pick up or harvest any resources I ran to along the way. Make sure I'm stocked up on crafting materials so I could continue making what I needed. I like that. Pokemon size variance is a new thing where each Pokemon can be a certain size within a range, which is randomly determined. And this really helps set different Pokemon apart. There also exist Alpha Pokemon, which are tough Pokemon that may have some exclusive moves, and will always be the maximum possible size for that mon. Alpha Pokemon can randomly spawn in the wild as a small chance for any Pokemon that spawns, but there's also a handful of Alpha Pokemon that will always be in certain locations. I'm glad that Pokemon players finally get to experience what us Xenoblade players go through, getting chased down by an incredibly overleveled Pokemon in like the first area who's about to let you know who's boss. Alpha Pokemon were a challenge to catch, but really cool to go after. Something interesting that I found out is apparently Arceus is the Alpha Pokemon. So that's an interesting little tidbit there for you in relation to the fact that there now are Alpha Pokemon in the world. I mean, it could be completely unrelated, but you know. The tutorials. The game starts out with basically an hour and a half of tutorial and dialogue before you can actually start playing the game. I usually don't mind long tutorials in games, but this was a long tutorial, and just left me wanting to actually go out and play the game at this point, not sit through any more explanations. I could figure out the rest myself well enough, or more niche things like the arrows by dex entries would be explained at some point later to help balance things out by not dumping too much on the player at once, right? Well, we already know that that wasn't, but I mean... So, once the tutorial that took so long I thought Half-Life 3 was about to release, it seemed like I was finally free. But I try to leave and this one guy is like, "Do you want to know how to manage your inventory? Come here, kid, and I'll give you a spicy new tutorial." I was so dang tired of tutorials at that point. I had already seen the storage box in my room by the exit of the village and at the camps out in the field. I hadn't used it yet, but I figured it was pretty obvious what its function was. I don't need this guy to tell me about the storage box. I've already spent the past couple hours of my life being told how this world works. A dedicated storage box tutorial was just plain unnecessary, so let's go actually play this video game already. I put a lot of hours in, and started to notice that my satchel was starting to get really full really fast. Each item slot could hold an absurd amount of that item, but only one item type per slot. So I had to start selecting what was important enough to start making a stack of that I'd be collecting in the field. Well, there would be so many collectibles in the field that trying to start a stack of each of them would be too much, and there'd always be one or two collectible types as I explored that I wouldn't be able to pick up. This was so frustrating, and one of the worst inventory systems I'd ever experienced in a game. So after a couple streams of being frustrated at this, I take to Google to see if there's anything I can do about it. Turns out, that guy forever ago who was going to tell me about storage, yeah, you can pay him to unlock new slots in your satchel and expand your inventory. Ugh. I know there would be those quick to jump onto the thought process of, you were just too stupid to notice that there was a solution there the whole time. But that's not how we handle things from a game design standpoint. Let me explain. One of my university classes was centered around tabletop games and their design, and throughout the course we made 3 different tabletop games with a different group, and a different theme with each one. We would get our fellow classmates to playtest our games, and see how our game worked in a normal play experience. Because of this, we don't tell the player how the game works. It's not like players are going to have the developers over their shoulder in a real situation explaining things to them. All they have are the pieces and the instructions. They need to try their best to figure it out. Maybe they misinterpret one of your rules and start playing the game a different way than intended. After all, something obvious to you as a developer or someone with background experience won't exactly be obvious to a new player. So if a player can't understand your rules or misinterprets it, then it's important to make changes that allow them to play the game the intended way. This is one of the most important parts of playtesting, ensuring that your game rules are clear and understandable. I, as the player going in blind, misunderstood the rules. I interpreted this guy telling me he could tell me about storage as he was going to tell me about storage boxes, something I thought was pretty obvious how they worked. And at a point in my play experience where I was too fed up with tutorials to deal with any more that I felt weren't needed. It had been a couple hours and I just wanted to play the game at this point. And so I was left with a much worse play experience because I didn't understand the rules here. I would have understood the rules if the guy had said, hey, you only have so much satchel space. Come to me if you want to expand your satchel. If this game was released in an age before the internet took off, there's no way I would have ever found out about Satchel Guy. I would have gone this whole game absolutely despising the inventory system because the game failed to explain its rules to me. Another instance of this was the motion controls. A lot of Switch games have motion control aiming, which is usually pretty solid, so I was hoping Legends Arceus would have this, but this unfortunately didn't seem to be the case. So, considering there was no motion controls here at all, I thought maybe it was just disabled and I could enable it. So I checked settings and see nothing along those lines. I only found out way later down the line because people told me that it was indeed in settings. It's not a toggle on and off, it's actually this slider called motion sensitivity. Also, the motion controls with the Pro Controller didn't seem to work all that well. I kept on drifting for some reason. I don't know if that's really a game thing or more of a hardware thing though. The poorly explained options such as satchel and motion controls are far from the only aspect of the game that would have sucked pre-internet takeoff. Take the Manaphy quest. The description for how to advance this quest is so insanely obscure. Needing these 3 specific Pokemon in your party while you go through this one specific arch in the evening. Of course, you can Google it and get the answer that way, but what was the actual developer intended way to find the answer? The answer was in a completely different video game than the one you're currently playing. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl Canalave Library has a book that holds the answer to this mystery, because of course it does. So not only do you need Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's save data to get access to the Darkrai event and a costume set, but you also need to have played it in such a way where you're interacting with everything you can, scrutinizing every detail, and keeping a mental note of it just in case some future video game has that as the solution behind a riddle-locked quest. Again, you can Google the answer, as 99.9% of players did, but it's clear that the design choice here was for the answer to be discovered in a completely different video game. Just because there is a workaround to find the answer does not excuse a poor design choice. So, the legendary Pokemon, which are actually a requirement for beating the game. One for Arceus for catching all the Pokemon, but also even just to get all the plates for the final battle against Volo and Giratina. Luckily, the catch rate of all of them has been increased, so it's not that massive of a pain to get the plate legendaries. It's really pretty easy, honestly. I do wish that there was more of a quest behind each of them. Give us some lore behind that Pokemon and make it feel like we worked up to encountering it, instead of just showing up and battling the flying croissant, who just so happens to be chilling around because reasons. One of the interesting ones I'd like to draw attention to is Regigigas. Remember how Regigigas was the ultimate of the Regi Pokemon, and you needed the other 3 Regis to rouse it from its slumber? I mean, it's other 5 Regis now, as of the Sword and Shield DLC, but that's neither here nor there. So you'd think there'd be a quest line to obtain the 3 main Regis, and this lets you wake Regigigas. Well, Regigigas is the only Regi that exists in this game. But there is still a legendary prerequisite to get Regigigas, and that is Heatran. You're probably wondering why that is. Well, since the 3 Regis don't exist in this game, they decide to make the new requirement just be the Rock, Ice, and Steel plates, matching the types of the 3 non-existent Regis. While the former 2 you get through the main story before the credits, the Steel plate is actually held by Heatran. Therefore, the new legendary prerequisite to get Regigigas is Heatran, a completely unrelated Pokemon. It's so wacky, I know. Anyway, all in all though, I do like the idea of getting the power of all the legendaries of Sinnoh to bring to Spear Pillar and uncover the truth, and the high catch rates making you not have to worry about getting RNG screwed for 3,000 years like legendaries of the past. Especially for people like me who most commonly use standard Pokeballs because I like the design of it the most. Unfortunately, as they are a story requirement, all the legendaries in this game are shiny locked. I guess I didn't want people being unable to progress in the story until they got the shiny they wanted. However, for all the Pokemon that can exist naturally in the world, this game is actually really great for shiny hunters. Pokemon will by default have the odds of 1 in 4,096 of being shiny. When you get to research level 10, you get 1 extra shiny reroll, which means for each Pokemon that spawns, it runs this 1 in 4,096 check twice, and if either of them is a shiny, it'll spawn a shiny Pokemon. When you max out a Pokemon's dex page, you get 2 extra shiny rerolls. When you get the shiny charm, you get 3 extra shiny rerolls. If a Pokemon spawns as part of a mass outbreak, you get a whopping 25 shiny rerolls. All of these also stack, meaning the best odds you can get for a shiny is 1 in 4,096 with 31 extra rerolls in a mass outbreak with that Pokemon's dex page maxed out and with the shiny charm. So this 1 in 4,096 chance is checked 32 times in total per Pokemon. I've seen a lot of people equate this to 32 out of 4,096 and break it down to 1 in 128, which is incorrect, and kinda irksome how a lot of influencers out there would parade this as fact. This faulty math relies on the idea that if you had a 1 in 4,096 chance with 4,096 attempts, you would have a 100% chance of the event occurring once, which is untrue. If you have a coin to flip and you want to get heads, that's a 50% chance. If you flip the coin twice, and therefore have this 50% chance twice, you do not add 50% to 50% to get 100%. Flipping a coin twice does not give you a 100% chance of getting the face that you want. In the flipping the coin twice example, your odds are actually 75%. 87.5% with 3 attempts, and 93.75% with 4 attempts, and so on. The more attempts you do, the greater odds you have of getting at least 1 hit during that time, the closer you get to 100%, but it is physically impossible for it to ever be 100%. We can use the following formula to calculate our true shiny odds. 1 minus in brackets 1 minus our probability to the power of our number of attempts. This means that the true highest shiny odds you can get in Legends Arceus is 0.7783%, which is not 32 in 4,096 as countless influencers would have you believe. In other words, 0.78125%. Yeah, fine, we're working with probabilities so low here, like 1 in 4,096, that this incorrect math isn't that far off from the true odds. And you don't really need to know the exact percentages for the sake of this video, but it's just so OCD triggering. So, with so much false information going around by influential names who don't understand how probabilities work, who I'm not going to name any names of, Cerebi, I figured I'd take a bit of a reprise here to correct this. If you want the true percentage odds rather than the incorrect ones almost every major influencer seems to be parading around, here you go. So, now that that annoying little bit of false information going around has been cleared up, let's return to the topic at hand with this passage. The shiny odds in this game are good. Even just with the fact that exploring around you're seeing so many Pokemon at once, as opposed to games pre-Switch, or Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl because it decided to be lame, where you could typically only run into one Pokemon at once in random encounters. It's why people loved shiny hunting and horde encounters in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Your shiny odds per Pokemon weren't any better, but you were encountering 5 Pokemon at once. You didn't have 1 in 4096 chance at a shiny. You had 5 1 in 4096 chances. It's the same idea here, except on a so much larger scale. You're seeing so many Pokemon at once that just by default, your odds are already so much better than series past. Legends Arceus was the game where I got my first ever full odds shiny after the past decade and a half of playing Pokemon. My shiny Buizel, Kenway, who I got during my very first session with this game. Heck, it wasn't long after that my little cousin got his first full odds shiny as well with Legends Arceus, and it was also Buizel. Big proud. I put just over 60 hours into this game in a casual playthrough. I never specifically went shiny hunting. I would check out mass outbreaks casually from time to time, and they do have the best shiny odds in the game, but I wouldn't exactly say I was hunting. Mostly just filling the decks and fingers crossed maybe there's a shiny. So throughout the course of this casual playthrough, I got my Buizel at full odds, I got shiny Ponyta at 100% odds as it's tied to a quest, so everyone gets that one. Shiny Zorua in a mass outbreak, who was one of the key members of my party, Sonder. Shiny Geodude with 1 extra reroll as I had Dex level 10. Shiny Roselia in a mass outbreak. Shiny Wurmple with 1 extra reroll with Dex level 10. Shiny Zorua again in another mass outbreak. Shiny Wurmple again, this time in a mass outbreak. This one being traded away to family for a regular Wurmple. And 2 shiny Elekid's that I got in the same massive mass outbreak. Another one of those of which was traded to family for this Burmy here. My casual playthrough of this game resulted in 10 shinies after I'd gone the past decade and a half of playing Pokemon and never encountering a single full odds shiny. I mean, out of these 10, only 1 was full odds, but still. 3 shinies randomly in the wild, 4 from mass outbreaks, 2 from massive mass outbreaks, and 1 tied to a quest. I was astounded. This is a fantastic game for shiny hunters, outside of hunting the legendaries at least. Pokemon can run away in this game, and of course there's accidentally knocking it out that can happen as well. But if you disable autosaves in settings and manually save in front of a shiny, every time you reload the game, the shiny will still be there, as the spawn table for an area is determined right when you go into the area as far as I understand it. Meaning the only way to get that shiny to not be there anymore is to go back to Jubilife Village and come back. So, save in front of the shiny, and you've got as many attempts as you need. You can even go to one of the camps and stock up on items and come back to the shiny when you're better prepared if you really want. I feel like this is probably the best Pokemon game for shiny hunting in series history, so those who enjoy pursuing that will probably have a great time. I know some say that odds this good devalue shinies by diminishing their rarity, and I do get that side of the argument. I know by the end with the Elekid's, I just couldn't really get hyped about shinies anymore. It wasn't really a that basically never happens kind of thing anymore. It was now a yeah, that happens sometimes kind of thing. So I do understand why some people see this as a flaw, and I did experience a bit of it myself towards the end. But personally, I still feel like it's worth counting as a pro, and I think that most shiny hunters can rejoice. Who can't rejoice, however, is those who play Pokemon for the multiplayer aspect. The ability to make a team of whatever 6 Pokemon you wanted and to be able to battle and trade with whomever you want were some of the biggest factors towards turning Pokemon into the highest grossing media IP, and what I defined as Pokemon's magic. Once again, we don't have all the Pokemon, but in all honesty for a game like this, here, I really can't blame them. Yes, there already exist full models for all the Pokemon, and full walking and running animations as it was found in the data of Sun and Moon. And in the last essay I did, the math showed that even if all of Sword and Shield's data was only Pokemon, there would still be enough room on the current cartridge sizes for all the Pokemon. So while I stand by the claim that the dex cut in the standard games was so they could make more revenue off of Pokemon Home, in Legends Arceus, it's a bit of a different story. Believe it or not, there's actually new models and new animations, which we'll be discussing in detail in the visuals and aesthetics chapter. There's many new circumstances Pokemon can be in this game that they wouldn't be in previous games. and as such comes the new animations. Or taking the time to make animations where there were none before, like sleeping, as opposed to the Pokemon just closing their eyes like series past. So I think in the standard series formula up to this point, where all the games worked essentially the same way at their core, and continued to recycle the exact same assets for the past decade, there's no excuse to purposefully keep out other content you already have and could just import, because you'd rather make more revenue off of a service you force players into using if they want to trade with each other across different games, or if they want to manage all their Pokemon on modern hardware. I get comments on that initial video essay all the time from people that seem to have this idea that the models and animations are done from the ground up for every new main series Pokemon game, when this is blatantly false. Were it actually true, I could forgive this incredibly magical part of Pokemon being diminished like it has. Well, you know what? In the specific case of Legends Arceus, it actually was true for once. Never thought I'd see the day. So, when it comes to this whole situation with the dex cut, let's go... I don't know if you get the pass or not, you're kinda in a weird area I don't know if I can make up my mind on. Sword and Shield? You absolutely don't get the pass. You either, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. But Legends Arceus? Yeah, I suppose I'll give you the pass. The only dex cut pass I've ever given Pokemon on the Switch. Alright, the other aspect of the magic of Pokemon, the interactability with other players and bringing people together. Once again, you can't interact with any other games on the Switch unless you or your friend you're trading with pays up for home, which is definitely a bit irksome. But since I gave Legends the dex cut pass, it's at least understandable that it wouldn't be able to interact with the other Switch titles directly, though it still doesn't excuse home being overpriced garbage. But you should still at least be able to battle and trade with others with Legends, right? I was completely shocked to learn this, but it seems that is false. You can recover the satchels of other players, which is actually kind of cool, not gonna lie, and can trade with other players, but no battling. A main series Pokemon game where it's impossible to battle other players. Excuse me, what? I know Pokemon games have been experimenting with what corners they can cut while still selling like crazy, but this is too far, and I can't believe I barely see anybody talking about it. This is Pokémon, the series that made a name for itself off of making whatever team you want and being able to battle and trade anybody else playing Pokémon. You're telling me that one of those key aspects, battling, is no longer available? This new battle system is honestly awesome. I would have loved to play against others with this. We know it's possible since there do exist trainer battles in this game. The systems are in place. I know adding multiplayer to a game is one of the single largest ways to add complexity to it, but come on, this game already has multiplayer elements, and the battle system is still turn-based. It's not like you need a really good netcode like some games are seriously lacking. What reason is there not to be able to battle with other players? You know how in the last video essay I said Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were the least interactable Pokemon remakes in series history? Yeah, Legends Arceus is now the least interactable Pokemon main series games in series history. And for the game all about doing something completely new with the series, it's just disgraceful. So, in terms of Pokemon's magic, the customizability and interactability that made the series so famous, Legends Arceus once again doesn't let you make your own team of whatever 6 Pokemon that exist, but considering they brought in new models and animations, this game gets the pass on that front. But the ability to battle and trade has been turned into just trading for seemingly no reason, unless you count the reason of saving production costs. In terms of the Pokemon magic as I define it, Legends Arceus 2 does not have it. In fact, it has it less than any other main series Pokemon game has ever seen before. When it comes to Pokemon battling though, let's talk a little bit about stats. The EVs and IVs that added a great level of complexity in series past have been completely done away with. And you know what? Thank goodness! EVs and IVs were a very smart system for making it so that 2 of the same Pokemon at the same level would still have different stats. But in terms of actually developing competitively viable Pokemon, it was such a pain. I was going to do an explanation on EVs and IVs, but instead how about I give a short and simple version, and if you're really interested in how it works, you can do some research. Simply put, IVs the Pokemon is born with. You can pass them down through a lot of breeding, or make them artificially better with super training. EVs have to be trained by defeating certain Pokemon associated with that stat over and over and over again. Each Pokemon can only earn so many EVs though, so if you want max stats, you can only max 2 of them. So if you want a competitively viable Pokemon, grind breeding until you've passed down a solid set of IVs, super train the rest, go defeat a bazillion of whatever specific Pokemon to train your EVs, pay careful attention to the EV levels of the stats so you know when you need to switch to grinding against a different specific Pokemon. This system sucked, and made the bar for entry into competitive Pokemon be dumping tens to hundreds of hours of your time grinding out builds, or cheating. So, EVs and IVs being gone in Legends Arceus? Good riddance. I hope they stay gone in future titles. In Legends Arceus, each stat now has an effort level, which can be anywhere from 0 to 10. You can use items to boost every stat, all the way up to level 10. No longer picking and choosing like with EVs. There's still natures as well, which will raise one stat and lower another one, or leave stats unchanged. And you can change this with mints that you can farm in the pasture. Breeding isn't present in this game, which is definitely disappointing, but at least you don't have to worry about going out of your way to pass down spicy egg moves, I guess. There's now a move tutor who can teach a lot of really spicy moves actually, and you can even use Seeds of Mastery here to get moves mastered without having to grind. Moves like Swords Dance and Nasty Plot now raise both offensive stats rather than attack and special attack respectively like in series past. Status conditions have been reworked. There was Burn that gave you damage over time and reduced your physical attack. Well, now it finally has an opposite with Frostbite rather than Frozen. Damage over time and reducing special attack. Sleep is now Drowsy, and acts kinda like Confusion where you have a chance of acting, instead of not being able to do anything until it wears off. I feel like the status changes very much help to simplify things. No more statuses that prevent you from doing anything 100% of the time until it wears off is really nice, and it's great to finally see an opposite to Burn. So overall, the bar for entry into more competitive Pokemon is easier than it's been in a very long time, and with simplified systems that make it so much easier for anyone to get into. And despite all these changes that would directly benefit players battling each other, this is the one main series game where you can't battle one another. I've been hosting Smash tournaments for this annual gaming event called Fragapalooza for a couple of years now. I would have loved the chance to host a casual Legends Arceus tournament on the side. That would have been a blast. But alas, despite this being one of the coolest Pokemon games I've ever seen for battling, you can't. So while so many of these changes are so good, and complement the overall new battle system with agile style, strong style, and the speed system really nicely, how much point is there even if you can only use them against random AI wild Pokemon and that's pretty much it after you've cleared the story? They made such a cool new system that you can't even play with others. Now, the last thing to bring up about the gameplay. The glitches. Sometimes when you start a battle, it seems a Pokemon can just go to the stratosphere for some reason. There's the whole deal with the hitboxes except for Pokemon being super jank. I know I mentioned it earlier, but it's worth bringing up for the glitches. Did you want to catch this Spheal? No such luck when Spheal Team 6 decides it would rather become Tree. Pokemon getting stuck in trees happened to me a couple times, actually. Sometimes Pokemon will shift in like a weird way as if the claw from Roller Coaster Tycoon picked them up, moved them over, and placed them down. The render distance in this game has to be some of the worst I have ever seen. Yeah, that very nice shadow render distance. What an incredible game. And the way this game renders things just in general is very questionable. Sometimes Pokemon will just activate cloak and go invisible, I guess. No, why did you go invisible? Don't know why you went invisible, but you did. Yeah, go munch the thing. You are invisible! I don't know why this happens sometimes, but it just does. Or sometimes fish are just a little bit tired of swimming in the water and decide they would rather swim through the air instead. Are you flying? For whatever reason, this game oftentimes likes to put these white lines or dots around their characters, and I have no idea why. As we've established earlier, the turn tracker in this game doesn't actually work, and neither does accuracy. Sometimes the animations just won't work. Sometimes the models just won't work. Sometimes the world just doesn't work. Sometimes progressing a quest just doesn't work. Or you need to wait around for 3,000 years for the quest event to load properly. Pokeballs just don't work sometimes. I don't really trust the camera in this game with how wonky it gets. Sometimes the world just doesn't operate in a logical way. Why is the moon suddenly no longer full back there? It was just full a second ago, and that was the mission requirement, was a full moon. It's not even full during the cutscene. Did they not playtest this game? Are you kidding me? Things just happen to be floating around sometimes. Oh, I actually forgot to tell you guys, I'm actually an angelic being. Why am I glowing now? Sometimes icons don't display correctly. When you fill a research task, it's supposed to show that Pokemon's icon in the top left. But sometimes, instead of the full circle icon, it'll show like the smaller semicircle version that cuts off the outsides, and I don't know why, but I saw it all the time. And not only does the UI display incorrectly sometimes it just doesn't display at all. Okay. Wait, why is my UI gone? What happened to my UI in the bottom right? It's gone! The UI is gone. Crabrave, the UI is gone! What the hell? The lighting of this game doesn't really work. The shading of this game doesn't really work. It's not really a glitch as much as an oversight, but it seems that for whatever reason, attacks do not care about the environment at all. Attacks can go through walls. Sometimes you'll find that you're actually floating if you look close enough. I'm hovering slightly and so is the door. The distance at which a battle takes place doesn't really work either. Whoops, what am I doing? Hello? I am under the water? What are you talking about? Very much looking forward to that. What day of the week is that anyway? But yeah, all you have to say is the end of the quest for this game is just as hard as a Galdera from Octopath. What do you mean I strayed too far from battle? And really now, because I had to give Galdera like 3 different attempts with like a lot of grinding between each. Was the thing. What are you talking about, game? How did this game ship? And what is going on here? I honestly don't think it's as buggy as Bugged Diamond and Shipped Pearly, but this is still an absolutely unacceptable state for a AAA game to ship in. Overall, the gameplay is fun, but it's clunky and feels like an alpha for an early 2010s game. The soundtrack is something that's usually really special about Pokémon games, so it's definitely something I was looking forward to here. After the last big open world Nintendo game I had played of Breath of the Wild, I felt myself really wanting an open world more filled with music to help bring it alive and really immerse you into your surroundings. It really was a shame Breath of the Wild's soundtrack was near non-existent, so here I was hoping that Legends Arceus wouldn't pull a Breath of the Wild here. And to be fair, I know Legends Arceus isn't truly an open world game, but it's similar at least. So, did it pull a Breath of the Wild? Unfortunately, it kinda did, yeah. Most of the time, there's no music playing in the world, and it just kind of feels empty and bland. Maybe both this game and Breath of the Wild could have learned a thing or two from other Nintendo-published games with vast open worlds that have incredible soundtracks accompanying them. It doesn't have to be something super adventurous in your face or anything. It can be a subtle, relaxing thing that just helps build the world around you, like Octopath Traveler, for example. However, I do feel like I heard the world music coming on more often in Legends Arceus than in Breath of the Wild. Both lacked it, sure, but I feel like Legends did it better and had notable music more often. I honestly have no idea what would trigger the area music to play as you explore around. It just kind of happens sometimes. But when it did, it could be pretty nice, and many of the themes of this game had a lot of nods to other games. The first theme of Obsidian Field Lands I feel like takes a while to build up, though it does help paint a picture of a vast, unfamiliar landscape. It eventually finds its presence, its identity, and even uses a leitmotif from National Park, one of the early, vast areas of Pokémon in the series' history, as a nod to how much things have changed since then. We begin Obsidian Fieldlands 2 in much the same way that we do Route 203. This theme is a lot more fitting of setting out on a charming new adventure across a field-like land, to the point that I've even used it in my Minecraft series. The way that instruments will put something forward for it to be echoed by another instrument moments later just fills this theme with so much charm and magic, as if another instrument is coming in to answer the call put forth moments ago. Crimson Mirelands 1 is another theme that feels like setting out on a mysterious new adventure through a strange but charming land. The way it brings in new instruments in a similar way to the last theme as if it's answering the call, makes it feel like you're continuing to discover more about this world. The way that it takes in the world feels like a theme that could be really fitting for a credits theme, like looking back on your adventure up to this point, but looking forward to new adventure ahead. In Crimson Mirelands 2, we see a musical nod to Selacion Town / Pastoria City. It's the same theme. Now, this one feels like it's chill, but also snazzy enough to be a new route theme in the main games in the style as similarly themed ones from Sinnoh, which is likely the intent here. Before we listen to Cobalt Coastlands 1, let's first listen to the theme it immediately gives me vibes of, Route 224. Well, technically Route 210, but it's used in a lot of other route themes such as 224, which I believe is meant to be more of a nod to. Route 224 is adjacent to Sunny Shore City, a city that would one day be built on the Cobalt Coastlands. This theme very much gives me vibes of this old route theme and of Sunny Shore City, likely because of the common location here. This one has a lot more of a relaxing by the seaside in the evening kind of feel. I could imagine hearing this theme as the sun starts to set. I also couldn't help but notice how this theme uses the leitmotif from Coumarine City from Pokémon X and Y. Coronet Highlands base has such a feel of grandness before you, like you're approaching the final frontier, or that this truly does mark the center point of Hisui. There's adventure ahead, something incredible to discover, like up ahead is the ending of a journey. Coronet Highlands Summit is a lot more empty feeling in an ominous way, like what could possibly be ahead. As it picks up, we get into a remix of the Mount Coronet theme from Diamond Pearl Platinum, a musical reminder of what this area is, but this time with a lot grander of a presence lurking to be on the lookout for. Before playing Alabaster Icelands 1, let's first listen to the Snowpoint City theme, as they both start out the same way. So, after leading in with a Snowpoint City intro, the theme picks up into its own new thing. This is a frozen landscape that won't be easy to traverse, but as long as you stay determined, you can pass this hurdle ahead of you. There's a couple notes in there that kind of remind me of Explorer's theme for Dusk Noir, but that's probably just a coincidence, right? Alabaster Icelands 2 is a lot more solemn theme. A mysterious frozen land laid out before you, with an aspect of mystery to it. When it picks up, it kinda reminds me of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity, which too had a strong connection to frozen and ice theming. It's not quite using the same leitmotif or anything, but the first couple of notes start the same way and it gives a very similar feel. The Heartwood is a remix of the original Turn of Forest theme, but now with way more elements having a presence. The Field Night theme doesn't really do a whole lot for me. It just kind of feels like needing to be cautious in a semi-dangerous hilly area as it turns to night. Like by turning it to night, you're going to have to find shelter against the mobs that soon come after you, like it's Minecraft or something. However, the late night field theme has a great sense of mystery behind it. It's late at night. The stars and moon above are helping illuminate this mysterious landscape that is completely different when the sun leaves. At least, that's how the music makes it feel, to clarify. This feeling would have been enhanced if the environments actually were quite different at night, similar to games like the Xenoblade titles, instead of only really changing what Pokémon appear. It also feels like there's a subtle hint of sadness to this theme that helps bring it all together. Listening through these area themes for the sake of talking about it in this video, I have to admit these were great, but I swear I didn't recognize over half of them. How do you get the music to play while you're exploring the world? Breath of the Wild barely has a soundtrack and as such has such an empty feeling world. Pokémon Legends Arceus, on the other hand, has an incredible soundtrack for its world, but just chooses not to use it 99% of the time. Because reasons? If somebody played these to me without any context, I'd honestly be like, wow, that's really great. Now I really want to play whatever game that's from. Wait, what do you mean I just played it? But for now, let's leave the vast world and delve into areas that actually do reliably have music playing in them. Jubilife Village does a good job of being a relaxing theme for a quaint little place, while being a remix of the original Jubilife City theme with a new rural and traditional twist to it. The Galaxy Team HQ theme uses several leitmotifs from the theme of Professor Rowan's laboratory, likely because here is where you're accepting missions from Rowan's ancestor and reporting progress on the Pokédex. This theme has an aspect of grandness and authority to it. This is the place where you'll take your jobs and set out across the world, after all. I know the Mystery Gift theme is pretty obscure, but can I just say how much of an incredible hidden gem Mystery Gift themes are in Pokémon games? For the Pokemon Wielder battle theme, I adore how themes like this are like old-era remixes of classic Sinnoh themes, this being a remix of the Trainer battle theme. Or how the Wild Pokemon battle theme is a remix of the original Sinnoh Wild Pokemon battle as well. I do have to say though, it would be nice to hear some different battle themes in different areas or something of the sort. Because after hearing this battle theme for every Wild Pokemon battle, it did start to get a bit tiresome. Then we have the Clan Warden battle theme being a remix of the Gym Leader theme. For the Noble Pokemon battle theme, I adore how this battle theme so seamlessly transitions depending on what's going on in the battle. It's like how Fire Emblem games will often have two of every map theme, a calmer one and a more intense one. The calmer one is used to looking over the map at all your units, taking your time and strategizing how to best come out on top in this situation, and the more intense version being used when your units are actually battling. We see a similar idea here in Legends Arceus where the music transitions to a different version of the same theme depending on the circumstances. As well, the theme had a very interesting detail that hints to how formidable they are by including a subtle nod to the Lake Trio. It does this by having one of the intro tunes be a much faster, more intense, and expanded version of the leitmotif of the Sinnoh Lakes. It's like the music trying to tell you that these aren't exactly the Lake Trio, but there's still figures of authority here in the region, and in the hierarchy, you could say that they're right beneath the Lake Trio. When actually starting a proper battle, the theme now becomes a remix of the battle theme, while still using the Lake leitmotif, but now including the legendary battle leitmotif, and Arceus' battle leitmotif. It's the music telling you all these Pokemon are related, and it even goes in order of least authority to most authority over the region. Let's listen again. Then, of course, for the initial Legendary Battle theme, we have a remix of the Battle theme and the Legendary Appears themes from the original Sinnoh Adventures. But then when we battle against the other Legendary who's now in their origin form, we have a completely new theme, but one which still uses leitmotifs of the original Legendary Battle themes. The theme of remixes comes in once again with the Lake Trio theme. And then, is it really much of a surprise that the legendary Pokemon battle theme is also a remix? Next up is Volo's theme, which is a remix of Champion Cynthia's theme. Now the theme is a lot more menacing. You're going up against this great evil. Volo has revealed his distorted colors. There's a bit where it takes this reprise to just reflect on the epicness, transitioning into a more hopeful tune for the battle at the end of your adventure. This is honestly one of the best battle themes in the game, and honestly a really standout one in the Pokemon series. You defeat Volo's party until it's revealed that there's another evil up his sleeve, and the music takes a more menacing turn as your final opponent of Giratina appears. When the battle starts, it's just the generic legendary Pokemon theme, which gets the job done but doesn't really do anything all that spicy here. It's pretty disappointing that there really wasn't anything to make this fight stand out more. It's just normal Giratina with the standard battle theme, so I'll just go ahead and defeat you and... Giratina unleashes its true power, and the music twists and comes in full force with a remix of Giratina's Platinum battle theme. This is your final opponent, the true power of the banished god and ruler of the distortion world. All in all, this 8 Pokemon battle against Volo and Giratina's 2 forms has to be one of the most epic battles ever in Pokemon history, and the music does it incredible justice. Then, finally, after you've caught all the Pokemon and challenged the Pokemon God itself, we get a remix of Arceus' original theme, which, interestingly enough, I don't think could ever be heard in the originals without cheating or glitches as the event went unreleased. This theme just gets more intense and fast as the battle goes on. There are even times in gameplay it cuts out completely when Arceus vanishes. It's complete silence. You are alone here, until Arceus starts breaking a hole in reality to emerge from and attack you, when the music comes back in full swing. By the end of the battle, the music has gotten incredibly distorted and glitchy, as if the world itself is glitching and falling apart as you enter the final stages of your battle against the Pokemon God. The final theme I want to talk about is the ending credits theme. It's a remix of Route 209, one of the most iconic themes from Generation 4. It's such a grand and adventurous theme. What a way to close out a journey. Only, it closes out the initial final boss of Dialga Palkia, not the Volo and Giratina arc, or Arceus at the end. Yeah, you don't actually get the credits for either of those endings. All in all, I would say the best part of Pokemon Legends Arceus is easily its music. My biggest complaint with the music of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is that the game shipped without it. Okay, but the second biggest complaint I had with the music of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl was that while all the themes were superior to their originals by being a lot more orchestral and higher quality, there were very few remixes in the soundtrack. It was mostly orchestral versions of the original themes without introducing brand new elements to help them stand out and be more unique to their originals. In Legends Arceus, however, we don't just have plainly remastered themes from the originals. We see this idea of remixes and introducing new elements come in full force, with new distinct feels from the themes they were originally based around. Easily my biggest complaint with the soundtrack was that while out in the world, we barely ever get to hear it, but at least in the few instances where we do, it is an absolutely incredible soundtrack. The world of Legends Arceus is certainly something vastly different compared to that of series past. One of my biggest concerns for this new world before the game released was how the world was having work allocated for its different aspects. I'll use the same example I used during the Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl video essay. Let's say you're making trees for your video game. Do you develop them in-house with your core team? If you do that, does that take them away from other stuff they'd otherwise be able to work on in that time? Do you hire somebody willing to do contract work who's willing to come in and just help you make some trees? Do you outsource the work to another group who can make the trees for you? There's a lot of moving parts to a video game, and a lot of different people and groups that may get involved to work on it, which is why communication between these different groups is paramount. My biggest concern with the visuals of Legends Arceus leading up to and through release is that all these aspects feel like they were made by different groups without enough communication to ensure their work looks similar to each other. This game's visuals feel like a weird mishmash from several different unrelated games. The human character models look like they're from Game A, the environments look like they're from Game B, and the Pokemon models look like they're from Game C, maybe VR chat. They don't really look like they naturally go together. It doesn't really feel cohesive. Exploring around this world feels like somebody made a Pokemon mod for Elder Scrolls Oblivion or something. Like, hey, the characters are here, but do they really fit? The human character models are pretty alrighty. They're in the style of Sword and Shield, and the character designs themselves are actually really good. It can be fun determining who's whose ancestor, like, wait, is that Charon's ancestor? The guy who I said got stricken from the canon in the last video essay after BDSP chose not to include him at all? Weird. Anyway, yeah, these characters are really solid, and all the significant characters are easily distinguishable from one another. The unimportant NPC models are alright, though there's very little variety. You see the exact same models constantly. I think the funniest was for the side quest to set up the new camp in the Icelands area, where this guy asks you to go get his friend so they can set up camp. So you bring the other guy to the camp, and notice these two supposedly completely different people are the exact same model with a different skin tone. They really couldn't have been bothered to use two different models for this side quest? Like, almost any video game ever is going to reuse generic NPC models, at least in some cases, but the degree to which Legends Arceus does is just insane. If you're going to be reusing NPC models, you should at least try to not make it noticeable. Some of the more vibrant designs that come in later, typically for battles, are pretty cool. Like Kamado's set of armor he wears, or Volo's cosplay because he's Arceus' #1 fanboy and simp. The way the characters emote in this game is really good. The expressions are vibrant and capture so much. Even things like the ball throwing animations, you can really see a lot of personality behind them, except for the Basket Legion ball throwing animation, where your trainer's just like, huh. It is also worth noting here that while most trainers that you face in this game do have a ball throwing animation, for whatever reason, Adaman and Arita don't. Their Pokemon just appears in battle. To be fair, you can see their Pokemon out and about before the battle starts, which implies that they don't use Pokeballs and simply walk around with their Pokemon. But this would actually feel a lot more authentic if they were actually with their Pokemon more often than just 5 seconds before the battle starts. The Pokemon. New models. A lot of the time, I couldn't even tell. Other cases, it's pretty obvious. Take Regigigas for example, whose golden parts actually have a metallic shine to them in a really cool way. Ghastly has a new wispy effect that's really cool. My goodness, the vividness with the idle animations on models like the new Alolan Ninetales model, or the new Hisuian forms of Zoro and Zoroark. Those are really good. Some of the new models, unfortunately, come with mistakes left in the game. Let's have a look at Clefable. It seems that at some point early on into creating the model, they must have put placeholder circles to signify where the eyes would be, similar to how Bidoof didn't actually have real eyes in the first trailer. So they put Clefable's eyes in around the center of these placeholder circles, and then left these reference circles in the game through launch. So Clefable just has its eyes in this weird circular indent looking thing. Look, I can open up my graphic design software and draw one line and Clefable now has glasses. I'm pretty sure this was a thing going on with the whole Clefairy line, actually. Or another weird quirky thing is Spiritom's neck not quite being attached to its head. It's floating in front, you can see between them. I'd also be able to take these models a lot more seriously if they actually had shading. Anybody remember back to my video essay after the reveal of BDSP in Legends Arceus, where I say Barry's hair looked like somebody just tapped it with the paint bucket fill tool? They fixed that in BDSP before release. In Legends Arceus, however, nope. I swear, almost every solid color on any Pokemon in this game is filled in completely with that shade, and that's it. It's literally a paint bucket fill. The only shading I ever noticed on any of the Pokemon in this game is just the shadow effects, which is just a part of the lighting system and not a part of the models, and it's not even well executed. These models just have the bare minimum done in terms of coloration. It's just so weird. I feel like somebody from Game Freak just yoinked the models from Gary's mod or something. Working as a shading artist on the Pokemon models at Game Freak must be one of the easiest jobs in the world. It's like working at Valve, you just don't do anything. Anyway, most of these models really feel like they're missing something. More than just the shading. Like they're incomplete somehow. My idea of a solution to this was if Legends Arceus had adopted a style like Okami, with what appears to be a painted black outline. It's one of the clear themes in the game already. It could have worked really well. I feel like seeing these Pokemon with an Okami style outline would help make them feel more full, complete, charming. The new Pokemon animations are fantastic and have so much charm to them. I think my favorite I saw is when my Alolan Ninetales went to sleep in the rain and put her tails over her body as a cover from the drizzle. When you bring out multiple Pokemon at once, they'll even interact with each other, and it's really charming to see.
Hi, everybody. Stop!
Also, I think it was probably unintentional, but when you face Giratina, it's designed to start the battle when you get close enough. But if you just don't get into that range, Giratina here acts the way he would as a normal player-caught entity in the world. What I mean by this is I was able to send out my Pokemon who'd emote with him, and Giratina gladly greeted each of my party members in order, before deciding he wanted to kill me. It was so weird, and I have no idea if it was intentional or a glitch, but it was really funny and cute, and I got a kick out of it. The way your Pokemon interact with each other in this game really is great. I do wish that you could do more than just have your Pokemon stationary when brought out though. Actually be able to walk with them, a feature Let's Go did a really good job with. Sword and Shield tried in DLC and kinda sucked at, and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl gets one of those like, at least you tried kind of medals. Maybe Game Freak was too sketched out about doing it after Sword and Shield or something. As is, I can bring up my Pokemon who do have incredibly charming emotes, but they're literally glued to the spot. Maybe they don't need to run with me through the areas or anything, but maybe they could at least step closer to me if I'm a bit apart. We know those animations exist considering they can adjust their position in battle, so maybe they could at least use this position adjusting to slow walk animation towards me if I'm a little bit far. The new move animations, these are generally pretty solid. My Arcanized Flare Blitz, for example, throwing that move out and then the animation with returning, dang, now that's satisfying. Super powerful moves tend to really express it now, and it really portrays how absolutely destroyed you're getting if you fight a high-level alpha Pokemon you're not ready for yet. One of the craziest new animations has to be Giratina's unique move. Just straight up goes to the distortion world and tears a portal through to your world to return and attack you with. Arceus' Judgment has to be another serious contender for one of the coolest, especially when paired with it embracing the power of whatever plate before it throws out the attack. The move animations in this game are really good, and really help the battle moves feel way more real and immersive than they've ever been in series past. The world. What can I even say about this? I think that this is probably the third worst looking Switch game I have ever seen. It looks like something that belongs in the late GameCube era / early Wii era. Before Legends released, there's a short video I published comparing its graphics to games like Battle Revolution from 2006, and in some ways, Battle Revolution looks better. In fact, there's a lot of really old games that look on par with or better than 2022's Legends Arceus. And it's so weird because sometimes you have textures that are actually pretty good, right next to textures that are completely awful. Such as in your room. The floor textures actually seem fine, right next to a table that looks like it had its textures taken straight out of Ocarina of Time. If you enter a cave, all of a sudden it feels like playing an early Doom game in HD. So many of the environments had bits that really feel like somebody messing around in their first time ever making a 3D environment. I took a 3D modeling class back when I was in grade 7, and grade 7 me from over a decade ago could have made a hill better than whatever pathetic excuse this is. Highest grossing media IP in the world, by the way. There's just so much of this environmental weirdness around. Give me Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 from 2004, and I can make better looking terrain with its terrain tool. Even the models of main objects is pretty janky sometimes. Like, the Pokeballs look pretty good. But anybody plays the flute, and guess what? It's literally just a cylinder. A cylinder of my own! I mean, clearly it's just like this because the Switch wouldn't be able to handle a flute that looks anything better than just a cylinder, right? Wait a second. Or while I was doing this one Chimecho side quest, this camera shot that came close to Chimecho, I noticed a reflection on its body, and at first, I was astounded. I was like, whoa, what? Did they put in some small aspect of ray tracing on a Switch game? That's so cool, there's no way. But as it turned out, there really was no way. This isn't actually a real reflection. This is a reflection made from a PNG of an area we're not even at. You can see that this is a reflection of the front of Jubilife Village in front of the Galaxy Team HQ. Yeah, we're actually around the corner over here. So Chimecho's reflections just transcend reality, I guess, to reflect things in completely different areas. Chimecho's just like a crystal ball. Oh, weird bell, allow me to gaze upon the Galaxy Team HQ. The character customization. This game brought back the standard customization the series has been using for nearly a decade now, of being able to choose what outfit pieces you want, something BDSP did away with for whatever reason. It's nice to see the actual full customization again, though there's really not a whole lot of options. Even after getting through the whole game, it only felt like there were a handful of options in each category, just a lot of different colors for each of those different pieces. So I decided to have a look and count it up. I won't be counting the one-off or unique pieces, only ones that you can choose between several different colors and designs of, so no expedition outfit or starting clothes, for example. There are a total of 9 types of hats, 6 types of tops, and the first 3 are all basically the same thing anyway, 6 types of bottoms, 5 two-piece sets, 8 types of footwear, and 4 types of eyewear. So it's nice that the character costume customization is here, but it's really very lacking. The character customization extends past more than just outfits though, we also have hair options. In Pokémon games, more often than not, I'll play as the female character rather than the male one, and one of the biggest reasons why I do so is because of the hair options. I have really long hair, which isn't super common for guys, and unfortunately can be a bit of a stereotype of, if he has it that long that just means he doesn't bother to take care of it, or he's a stoner or something. Neither of which is true. I put a lot of work into taking care of it every day. Unfortunately, we see society have these long-held social norms, like guys have short hair, girls have long hair, and these social norms continue to be perpetuated by media industries. Such as in the gaming industry, if your custom character creator reserves all the good long hair options for the girls, and all the good short hair options for the guys, as is often the case in Pokemon games. So that's why I chose the female character to have so much better hair options than I assumed the guy would get. Well, that and because she's better, okay? Freaking fight me. Now that the game has been out for a bit, you know, as it's taken me 3 months to make this video, and I've had a chance to look through the hair options of both, you know, the messy ponytail for the guy isn't half bad, honestly. But overall, I think I still much prefer the hair options for the female character. This could easily be solved by giving both characters access to the same full pool of hair options, rather than making these options exclusively behind your character's gender. And this is important not just for Pokemon, but any game that makes things like hair customizability gender exclusive, because by doing so, they perpetuate these long-held social and cultural norms, saying that if you're a guy, you have to look like one of these options, or if you're a girl, you have to look like one of these options. The Pokemon within this world. The concept of actually being able to see Pokemon living naturally in their environments seemed like a really cool prospect. Unfortunately, it really doesn't feel like they are existing naturally in their environment. They feel like they're deliberately placed around in the way they are for the purposes of the player. You don't really track down the Pokemon in their world and see how they would be behaving in the wild. Rather, you just walk around and run into Pokemon that were clearly placed there for you, and they're typically just walking around and that's it, sometimes rarely sleeping. In fact, the Pokemon of this world are programmed so basically that they don't even react to water in any way. Is this Bidoof underwater? He's just chilling. Think he'd be floating or something. Is he just walking on it like it's ground? Oh my god, that's not how water works! Yeah, the Pokemon don't seem to react to water in any way. Look at this. It doesn't immerse you to feel like a living, breathing world, but rather a system. The way this game handles resolution is really, really weird. I find myself questioning if it was even at 720p sometimes, like especially when wandering around Jubilife Village. Maybe it's just a weird illusion created by different aspects of this game not quite matching together. But I look at this and it's like playing an alpha version. For reference, this is an example of a 720p Switch game, which is also a port remaster of a 2010 Wii game. And this is Legends Arceus. Here's another comparison. Compared to tiny ones, this is very white. It kind of hurts my eyes a little bit. You can literally see on my camera how illuminated my face is by how much white is in front of me. This is insane. Speaking of it feeling like an alpha, some structures are absolutely horrendous, and I think the worst is Snowpoint Temple. I swear, Snowpoint Temple looks like something that was made in a game jam, or somebody quickly threw it together in Unity for fun. Or maybe young students like me in grade 7 threw it together to submit for an assignment in a 3D modeling class. And then comes the render distance, which really isn't very good at all, as we talked a little bit about during the Spiritomb questline. And when you get within render distance, the new stuff to load in doesn't even fade in the way other games would often handle. It just pops into existence. And then you have stuff like, well, this. At a distance, Pokemon lose a lot of their detail, and you don't even have to get very far in a lot of cases for the detail to just tank. And if a Pokemon is moderately far away, their frame rate dips down to like 2 or 3 FPS it feels like. For a lot of video games, especially on limited hardware like the Switch, to increase performance, sometimes sacrifices will need to be made to distant entities. Usually this becomes a matter of, do we want to decrease their resolution, or do we want to decrease their frame rate? For example, with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, they elected to decrease the frame rate of distant entities, but keep the resolution as is. And then there's Pokemon that's just like, yeah, let's just do both. And throughout the process of editing this video, I also noticed a lot of really weird things when the game switches camera angles. Okay, so I was in the middle of editing chapter 1, putting in this bit about the Arceus event here, since that was just the thing that was revealed today. I noticed something peculiar while I was editing. Have a look at this. So this is one frame. If we advance forward one more frame, we have this shot here, and one more frame. You notice the difference? You notice the difference between these two frames here? And it got me thinking, what is this effect? What is this here? But then going back one frame, I realized that's the lighting effect of these bits here that carries over to the next frame. This means that the lighting effects that protrude out of this, or at least part of it, isn't even truly coming out of this. It's just an overlay that they lazily slapped on top of this that is only corrected like an extra frame after it switches to another camera angle. Bro, what is this game? The weird stuff I'm finding while editing just never ends, it seems. Have a look at this. This is the Volo battle. He just sent out his first Pokemon of Spiritomb. So now that he's sent out his first Pokemon, it's now going to have to cut over to our trainer, the playable character who's going to send out their Pokemon. But before we can do that, look, it's like this for a while, but before we can switch over, one frame dipping the camera, and then it switches over. You wouldn't want to switch over before dipping the camera just one frame for reasons. Don't know why, but the camera really just needs to dip down there for whatever reason. As well, the freaking lighting is bugging out over here in the meanwhile, just not being able to decide what it wants to do for the shadow effects and all. What is this game? Alright, so it seems like the whole overlay affects a whole lot more than just the Arceus cutscene. It's all over the place. Why? Why though? Why? Why is there a glow on the arms that carries over to the next shot for one frame? It doesn't make any sense! Something else really strange that I only just now noticed. It seems like if you open your map, have a look at the name down here of my Pokemon Torrent right now. It changes to these symbols that look similar to HT for a couple frames, goes back to Torrent, and then map. I'm so confused. So I'm back once again finding more weird things in editing, no surprise there. So in this shot here, I've just selected to use the Ultra Ball to throw out the Wild Umbreon. So the camera angle is about to switch over to that shot. But before that can happen, the Pokemon are just going to cease to exist because reasons. You would think, you know, most games, if some of their characters are going to cease to exist, you would think that that would only happen after the camera angle switches over and you can't tell anyway. Because you can't tell here if they really exist or if they've ceased to exist because they're out of the camera shot. You'd think that they would despawn when they're out of the camera shot. Whereas Game Freak over here is like, nah, just do it one frame early. Who's gonna care? Yeah, good job. Well, here's another wacky one. It seems like we need to change the camera angle over to Enamorous. Waiter, you forgot the grass. Apologies. Right away, sir. Alright, I think I might have just encountered my new favorite in terms of wackiness of this game. Have a look at this. So I just sent out Repeat here to battle against Adam and Leafeon, but when we look over to his side, Where's the village? Oh, there it is. Also, he was gone, but now he's there. That's, Leafeon and Eevee are here. I don't know why they're there, but they are just fine. But everything else, this building is still here just fine, and the stuff in front of it. It's just everything behind. I guess it must be everything past, like, this point here, which Adamant just happens to be in line with. That's so funny, though. Like, you would think that they would have the village loaded before changing the camera over to the shot that shows the village. But nah, just do it after the shot has already changed. Okay, this one is a bit of a strange one. Rather than the camera angle changing over and the things in the distance being loaded one frame later, instead, it's a slow fade in as the ghostly pillars come back to this ethereal plane, I guess. Entity pop-in isn't just a problem when the game is switching camera angles, but it'll happen even within the same shot of several cutscenes as well. Popping in a character for them to later enter the shot is super common in a lot of games, so that you're not using resources rendering them when they're not being used. Except the trick here that it seems Game Freak didn't know about is to pop in the characters outside of the shot and then enter the shot. But nah, just have them come into existence on the edge of the shot. This game's a joke. If someone's gonna spawn in, they could at least be off camera, not on camera. Game Freak, do you not know how cutscenes work? You spawn them off camera and then they walk in so that it creates the illusion of them appearing. As well, there are some cutscenes where the cutscene actors are directly clipping into each other. Are you serious? Did you not think to move one of them a smidge to the side so they're not clipping into each other in this shot? As much as I hate to say it, believe it or not, there's a new tree problem. In Sword and Shield, the trees had attention drawn to them by consumers as a sign of poor graphical quality after the Pokemon Company said better graphics and animations were the reason for the dex cut. In Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I criticized the fact that every area has only one model of tree, and that's it. Well, guess what? We've got a new tree problem. No, it's not them looking awful like Sword and Shield. I mean, they don't really look good, but they don't look so bad that they're worth talking about here. They're not the exact same tree pasted around in a perfect grid like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Nope. This time, the trees float. You see, these tree models were designed only with perfectly flat surfaces in mind. This means that if you're placing these trees down on a non-flat surface, part of them will be floating by default. I used the environmental modeling of Planet Coaster as an example in the BDS PSA, and I'll do so again here. So let's have a look at this kind of tree, for example. It's one that has a lot of roots like this. If I place it down on a perfectly flat surface, then hey presto, it looks just fine. It looks perfectly natural like that, apart from it being in Winter Park, that is. But if I go to a slope like this, something that's not flat, and I place it down, say here, that's not really gonna look as natural anymore, because you've got this root that's like sticking out like that and just floating. It's like, that's not how roots work. So how do you fix this? Because there is actually a solution to this problem. You know what you do? You move the tree down. Yeah, done. Now that's a very difficult and high-level solution, I know. Game Freak, hire me. So, yeah, because Game Freak either didn't know how to or couldn't be bothered to just move their floating trees, any tree in this world on even the most moderate of slopes is going to be slightly floating. How this game handles cutscenes. The full cinematic cutscenes are typically pretty nice and well done. Everything else though, which is 99% of cutscenes, literally any time the moment would call for a moderately more difficult animation, it just cuts to black, plays a sound effect, and you have to imagine it instead. Now, don't try to repeat the wondrous feat you're about to see me perform. Let me guess, it's gonna switch to black and we're not gonna see it? Tall leap like this can only be managed by highly toned bodies like mine. We're not gonna see it, it's gonna be black, right? Until next we meet. I freaking called it! These cutscenes are made up of many animation presets. Should the highest grossing media IP go to the effort of making some new animations for cutscenes when it's needed? Nah, just cut to black. Every time. There are a lot of games that will use cutting to black with sound effects and cutscenes, but typically more on occasion when it really is such a specific thing there was an animation for, like maybe a character entering and exiting a vehicle, for example. But Pokemon, it felt rare to have any cutscenes that didn't cut to black at some point. Rather than an occasional thing for just a few specific cases, this was just part of the Legends Arceus experience. I'm surprised there aren't more people that talk about this kind of thing. People have just become so conditioned to expect low quality from Pokemon that they start treating it like an indie studio where the cut corners are just accepted. So because cutscenes are done with all these basic animation presets, and moderately harder animations are never used because of the cutting to black, it leads to all these cutscenes just feeling very robotic-y. This is also made worse by the fact that there's no voice acting. Voice acting has become so standard in the industry at this point, especially for larger studios. So to see the most profitable media IP of all time still not use voice acting, it's just very jarring. So, the aesthetics of Pokemon Legends Arceus. Just like the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl essay, when I say aesthetics, I mean in terms of the MDA framework. So, since I explained it there, I'll give the short version here. MDA, Mechanics, Dynamics, and Aesthetics. Mechanics are the mechanics, the game rules, what's possible and how. Dynamics are what actually happens when you play the game, which could be different for each player depending on what happens and what they choose to do. Aesthetics is how the experience makes you feel, the play experience. Mechanics are the most developer side, aesthetics are the most player side. So, how did I feel playing this game overall? I had a decent bit of fun, yeah. I felt satisfied at my progress, which was clearly quantifiable with things like the dex tasks, assuming I'm not trying to 100% it. I would feel a smidge of excitement at seeing mass outbreaks, knowing the shiny odds of them are pretty solid. I felt wowed seeing things like the new spicy attack animations. I felt joy at the vivid character expressions, during the better cutscenes at least, and my Pokemon emoting and how they would react to my other Pokemon or the world around them. I felt so relieved at the removal of things like EVs and IVs, and introduction of new, much simpler systems. I felt very fascinated with the new battle system, and how I could use it to try and get multiple turns at once. Being able to handle catching Pokemon in my own way made me feel like the game respected me being able to handle things in my own preferred way, by making these different options available. I felt like it gave me much more agency and control over my gameplay experience. I felt so many emotions at the music of this game. Nostalgia, calming, epicness, inspiration. But on the other side of the spectrum, I felt like I was playing an alpha version of the game, or a tech demo. This game controls like something that would have been a bit clunky and strange to use even in the early 2010s. We have superior design options nowadays, but Legends just doesn't use them. I felt frustrated when the game wouldn't tell me important information, or would halt me with buggy weirdness or its incredibly weirdly designed systems. I felt like the world was a bit empty from the lack of music when exploring, and the world felt so much more artificial than natural, what with the weird environmental designs and the Pokemon not really truly existing in their natural environment, feeling deliberately placed around for the player. I had hoped that Legends Arceus would be the first game to make me feel like I was truly existing in the Pokemon world, but this was not it. The end of a journey. It's almost bittersweet in a way. Here at the end, let's list off all the pros and cons I had with the game and total them up. Starting things out, let's go with the pros of Pokemon Legends Arceus. First off, this is something really quite different for Pokemon. The isekai plot premise with hints you're a trainer from the modern era is actually pretty interesting. The Diamond and Pearl clan conflict making a commentary on conflict over religion was a very unexpected thing for Pokemon to do, but I love it when games have deeper arguments and meaning behind them, lessons we can learn. It's not quite as censored as Pokemon games in the past. Other characters in the story seriously contemplate about leaving you to die and go to no efforts to hide it. And serious symbolic moments like seeing that the Shinx has a family, but you are all alone, that hits hard. How you interact with the Pokemon in this world can be handled in your own unique way, whether that be catching in the field up close, at a distance, with bait, with something to stun them, or even just battling the old-fashioned way. The new battle system and how it deals with speed is actually pretty interesting and something that helps to change up the formula. Strong and agile style really help to complement this new battle system. Casually filling out some of the tasks in the Pokédex and getting to resource level 10 can actually be pretty fun, and it gives that satisfying feel of progress. Space-time distortions are actually pretty cool and fun events to go into casually, though they do have some cons we'll get to when we start talking about those. Ride Pokemon are pretty cool. The transitioning between ride Pokemon usually works pretty well. The final battle against Volo is straight up one of the coolest battles in Pokemon history. The noble Pokemon battles are typically pretty interesting and fun. The rolling can feel a little clunky, though not enough to include it as a con. You can replay boss battles, something that should be an option in a lot more games out there. Elden Ring. The selection of Pokeball types is pretty nice. Do you want to handle things in the standard way, sneak up behind, or throw from a distance? The choice is yours. I know this point sort of pertains to one of the previous ones of catching in your own way, but I'm including this separately. Your options of Pokeballs are simple and clean. These three with these 3 tiers, as opposed to other games where there's so many niche Pokeballs where I could never remember the function of them all. And while in a way it was pretty fun to have a bazillion different types of Pokeballs, at the same time it can also be pretty satisfying to just have like a really simple and clean system like this. The crafting system was interesting, and made me feel compelled to collect all the resources I could along the way. Pokemon size variance is a pretty cool new thing. Alpha Pokemon were another neat new thing which played off of the size variance by always being the largest size. A lot of them were also pretty tough for the areas they were in, which is really cool to see. I do like the idea of pursuing the other legendary Pokemon of Hisui to obtain the plates that are the key to beating Arceus. Though, by the end, they're technically not, since it turns out you gotta catch all the Pokemon for that and the plates may not actually matter. I was debating about removing this from the pros for that reason, but decided against it. Outside of legendary Pokemon, this game is great for shiny hunters and boasts incredible odds. In addition, this game determines its spawn tables when you first enter the area, which means you can save in front of a shiny and give it as many attempts as you want until you catch it, or even go restock and come back in a bit and the shiny should still be there. In a game where Pokemon can run away from you, and you can still accidentally knock them out like in series past, it was great to design it in such a way where you can continue to try until you get it. You know what? I'll actually add the shiny Ponyta to the list of pros. Reason being, because this game is so good for shinies and shiny hunting, especially in mass outbreaks, that I think it makes a lot of sense to have a quest that gives you one as a special prize, and also helps introduce anybody unfamiliar with shinies to the idea that this can happen. The Generation 2 games gave you a shiny red Gyarados as part of the story, as these were the games that first introduced the concept of shiny Pokemon, so it was smart to establish to players that this was a thing that could happen. So now in the game arguably better for shiny hunting than any of the games before it, it makes sense to have another similar situation with a scripted shiny, to establish that this is a thing that can happen. For that reason, I'm giving shiny Ponyta a point on the pros. I think it's a smart design decision. EVs and IVs are gone, Crab Rave! Effort levels are the new replacement for EVs and IVs, and I'm honestly so hyped about the removal of that old system that I'm making its removal and its replacement system 2 separate pros on the list. Effort levels can be boosted up to level 10 for every stat. No more picking and choosing like with EVs. Getting mints to change nature is pretty simple. Just plant it in the pastures and come back later and you'll have a harvest of mints. Of course, there's no way to specifically get what mints you need, but just keep planting mints while you play and you'll get more and more no problemo. So it's not a perfect system, but you get these just by letting it grow while doing whatever else you want in the game. It's not like you need to take time to grind in the battle tower like some previous games to get the mints you needed. Just keep playing the game the same way you always do, and you'll get those mints if you're planting them. The simplification of things like Swords Dance and Nasty Plot, now raising your offensive stats in general rather than one in specific. Status condition reworks. No more status conditions that prevent you from acting 100% of the time until it wears off. And now the burn status has an opposite, being Frostbite. Status conditions being automatically healed after the battle. The soundtrack in this game was fantastic when it played. So much of the soundtrack being remixes of Gen 4 themes in a new style was a really nice touch. Many themes including leitmotifs of other themes, like how the Noble Pokemon battle theme expresses the whole hierarchy of authority of the Pokemon of Hisui, was really cool. The insane musical journey we go through for the final battle against Volo and Giratina was so dang incredible that it deserves its own whole separate point on the pros list, even though I already gave the soundtrack a point for being great. Heck, including the remixes and leitmotifs, this is 4 points for the soundtrack. The human character models, as models, are pretty nice and charming. Tying several of the characters to characters in other Pokemon games to establish them as ancestors is actually a really cool touch. Pokemon emoting is really well done. New Pokemon models, some of which have cool new details like a metallic sheen, new wispy effects, or even cool new tail designs and effects. The expressions and animations during the high quality cutscenes were really well done, though it's too bad these cutscenes were very far and few between. Your Pokemon even interacting with each other when out of the Pokeballs. I'm going to give a whole nother point to your Pokemon settling down after they've been out a while, such as going to sleep. The new battle animations are pretty solid. And now for the cons of Pokemon Legends Arceus. Locking content behind all the other main series Switch Pokemon games, which means locked content behind Pokemon Let's Go, Pokemon Sword and Shield, and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Creating Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's early buying bonus timeline to boost its sales once more after Legends Arceus released, with consumers seeing that they need BDSP save data for Darkrai, and now they have under a month to decide if they want BDSP as well, or else that BDSP early buying bonus is just gone forever. It's pretty manipulative towards consumers who only picked up Legends Arceus by pressuring them like this. Legends Arceus having its own fear of missing out as well. It's quite a bit convenient how nobody's been good at this whole Pokemon deal until you came along, even though there's plenty outside the village that seem plenty adept at this whole Pokemon thing. But nah, can't get help from those guys, because then the other clan will get mad or something. Wait, but there's also those inside the village that are pretty adept at it. Nah, can't get help from them. They're busy doing NPC things. It just makes the whole premise here very forced. If you could perhaps actually tell us, or at least hint at why Ingo got isekai'd as well, that'd be great. Even your own isekai is never fully explained past, I was right to bring you here, after you've saved the world. Do you want to go back to your own world? Confront this moral dilemma? Something we never see in the story. Volo also has Cyrus syndrome real bad. The reason why he feels the way he does is anyone's best guess. One of the deities that Volo was simping for isn't explained either. Giratina, why were you banished in the first place? Why do the legendaries of space and time adopt forms closer to Arceus after falling into a rage? Who knows? Past more forms to sell, I guess. What could have changed the Galaxy team into Team Galactic? I don't know about you, but I think a group seeking peace and knowledge transitioning into a group that wants to destroy the world is a pretty important bit of information in a plot. Too bad Pokemon doesn't seem to feel the same. The Shadow Triad wannabes were actually secretly trying to support us? Literally, what shred of evidence could have possibly given you that idea? The complete separation of the 5 main areas. I'm including Professor Laventon giving you 2 different options to the exact same thing, and him even having the exact same dialogue for both a point on the cons. Because the fact that this is a thing is just beyond lazy. Did you not have playtesters to say we don't need the same thing twice? I don't know, today I'm just feeling like going with this option for the same thing. But maybe tomorrow I might feel like doing the other option to achieve the exact same thing. The fast travel system also only letting you travel to camps as you enter an area, even though countless other places have fast travel associated with them. As you select your camp to fast travel to, it's just a name with no visual indicator on the map, testing your memory unless you want to zoom in to check the map, and then zoom out every single time. You can only fast travel to other areas through Jubilife Village, which forces you to go through 3 to 4 loading screens if you're trying to get somewhere else. Loading screen transitions? This game couldn't really be bothered. If you're coming out of a loading screen, you're just hit with a sudden pop-in as if you accidentally received their development copy. Which is really strange considering there is a transition going into a loading screen, but coming out of a loading screen, there's just nothing. The turn tracker would be nice, if it wasn't for the fact that it doesn't actually work. 100% accurate moves can miss like the original games from 1996. And I'm convinced that the accuracy in this game is just a big lie. Whatever the hit rate calculation system is in this game, it's something really, really weird. The Pokédex entry bonus points thingamabob with the arrows is never really explained. Some Dex entries require you to do more of the specific thing than the general thing. Why? The expectations on completionists who want a fully complete Pokédex is absolutely ridiculous. I can only imagine how many hours of mindless grinding you need to do. This is made even worse by the fact that you can't turn off combat animations. So even if you're doing mindless grinding, you always have to sit through the full length of everything. To face Arceus and truly beat the game, you need to catch all the Pokémon. This also means that all the cons I'm about to list that pertain to catching Pokémon might not be as much of cons if they weren't requirements to beat the game. Space-time distortions have no way to trigger them. You just need to wait around until it appears, which is such a pain for the distortion-exclusive Pokemon like Magnemite, Magneton, Shieldon, Cranidos, Porygons. You can save the game to reset for a shiny you found however many times as it takes, but space-time distortions have no such luxury. If you save and restart, it's just gone. Catching the baby Pokemon is basically just continue to reload the area over and over again until it spawns. The Spiritomb quest tracking is awful, giving you no indication of which wisps you've collected already, how many are left in each area unless you have a photo memory or wrote it down when it briefly told you when you got the last wisp, and if you don't remember if you got all the wisps in X area or not, then you still need to go check out every wisp location because the game's never telling you again whether you got all the wisps there or not, so you better not forget. This needs to be done for all 107 wisps. Tornadus and Thundurus are only out during certain weather, which there's no way to manually change. You just need to reload the area over and over and over until you get the weather pattern you need. Before you can go after this final set of legendaries, you need to grind until research level 10 with the initial legendary trio. The final of the weather Pokemon, Enamorus, has legitimately got to be one of the most annoying Pokemon I have ever tried to catch. I guess without roaming legendaries, they had to do something else annoying, huh? Ursaluna. The ride Pokemon who's a bird that you use for flight doesn't know how to go up. Well, unless you use a glitch a fellow Consecrator brought to my attention at least. Mountain separations between two areas that do exist and are explorable often have invisible walls at the top which can be run into with Braviary, or even worthier. You can throw Pokeballs from the water ride Pokemon out of necessity, but none of the others. If it's not needed to play the game at all, then why bother, I guess, right? This forces you to constantly dismount and remount whenever there's something you want to harvest or a Pokemon you want to battle or catch. Ride Pokemon. The B button is the high-profile running button. As a trainer, the B button is the low-profile sneaking button. That's totally not confusing at all. Running also functions completely differently between Ride Pokemon and the trainer, being a button that you hold for the Ride Pokemon and a toggle for the trainer. Also totally not confusing. Running as the trainer uses a stamina meter which is hidden from the player, and really doesn't seem to last very long. You also can't use Ride Pokemon in Jubilife Village, which makes running around it with the constantly running out stamina pretty irksome. They kinda tried to remedy this by adding several fast travel points, but I should think that it would be faster to run to the other side of the street than open the menu and fast travel to the other side of the street. Why are the menu buttons so dang weird? Plus is Ride Pokemon, minus is Map and Requests, down on the D-pad is Pokédex, and up on the D-pad is every other menu, which are separated by tabs. And if you want to craft, you have to go to Items, switch to another tab within this set of tabs to get to your crafting menu, and then you can craft. As well, if you open up the map with minus, minus doesn't actually close the map again. It zooms out to areas that you can't even fast travel to, so why would you want to zoom out anyway? So minus is open the menu, B is close the menu. If you press minus trying to close the menu, you've just stalled yourself. Are they trying to confuse their players? The UI that determines what you're currently throwing gets the job done, but it's clunky. It uses valuable time cycling through a mess of items since everything that's throwable goes into the cyclable UI, whether you like it or not. While plenty of other games, even on the Switch, have much better alternatives to switch to something on the fly. Cycling to a specific ride Pokemon and stayed on Braviary a moment too long? A crime punishable by death. Want to use this one Pokemon in the Path of Solitude? Well, you can't just select the one you want like the past couple decades of Pokemon games would have let you do. Nah, empty out your entire party save for the one you want, and then just fill your party back up again after the battle's over. Quests almost never tell you where they are in their description. forcing you to manually select them to find out where they are. Not displaying your currently accepted quests that aren't your current active one when you get close to its objectives. Meaning, you could go past your objective countless times on your playthrough until you eventually mark that one specific side quest as active. I was like, oh, I could have done this forever ago. I wish the game had told me about that as I was going past, as most other games would do. Quests that bait you into going the wrong way by marking an objective as over here, when really your objective is somewhere completely different. Quests the game refuses to give you until you reload the area, even though it displays it as something that you can accept right now. It would have been nice to have an option in the menu to change your input buffer for things like roles. Input buffer didn't really screw me up super often, but it still did a couple times, and I wish it was something that there was a setting to change. The option to change the input buffer in action games is just something I want to see more in the gaming industry in general. It would have been nice if there were options to change the buttons around at all after the strange button mapping this game has going on. During noble Pokemon battles, your ability to run is completely disabled. Why? When you're knocked down, you wait on the ground so long before getting up again. It takes you out of the moment as your trainer just has to contemplate the mysteries of the universe for a hot second. Sometimes wild Pokemon will just know you're there despite you not really having done anything to set them off. This seemed to mostly happen during mass outbreaks. The rolling is a loud action, even though it would have made a lot more fun gameplay experience had it been silent instead. Needing to get closer to a Pokemon when you're up on a cliff feels near impossible, because you're going to slide down that cliff, and the moment you do, that Pokemon is going to see you. Sometimes hitting a nearby Pokemon with a Pokeball will just have it bounce off and do nothing, even when it's clearly before that Pokemon detected you. There's Pokeballs designed for range with the Feather Ball series, but the game itself only has a limited range Pokeballs will function in. So even if you land a direct hit on that Pokemon in the distance, if it's outside of this invisible range, it'll just bounce off and do nothing. This also makes being sneaky for mass outbreaks in the water near impossible and one of the most frustrating things. Try to do it from pretty far, and it's just gonna bounce off and do nothing. Get closer, and any Pokemon that turns over is going to see you since there's nowhere to hide. The ranged Pokeballs don't even line up with the crosshair. You have to aim down past the center point. Don't trust the middle of that crosshair because it's a lie if you're using a ranged Pokeball. There's a quick way to check the Pokédex page for a target Pokemon, but only if you get really close to it. If you start a battle, there's no longer any way to check the Pokédex. Better hope you remembered what your tasks are. The hitboxes on things that aren't Pokemon has to be one of the jankiest things I've ever seen. And to be fair, even the Pokemon hitboxes sometimes are pretty janky. The game doesn't really try very hard to make it known there's a way to expand your inventory. There's just the guy that says, "Oh, is your satchel getting full? Talk to me!" At a point where the player has already seen several storage boxes around the world and has just come out of a couple hours worth of tutorials. The game didn't convey this rule to me. I didn't realize it existed, and got incredibly frustrated about the inventory system. Motion control aiming is another bit of information that's really never explained. The game never brings it up, and there's no motion control toggle in settings, but rather a motion sensitivity slider. The game also barely explains the Manaphy quest, and if you don't get the answer online, the intended legitimate way to find the answer is by scouring a completely different game. It would have been neat for the legendary Pokemon after the main story to have some sort of quest to each them. Well, they are each technically a quest, but you know what I mean. Something that you need to do, and a small journey where you learn about them and do some tasks to have the privilege of meeting them. Nah, they all just kinda show up for the most part. Regigigas no longer has a prerequisite of the 3 other main Regis, but rather, Heatran, because that makes perfect sense. You can't battle with other players, despite that literally being one of the most iconic parts of the entire series. The magic of Pokemon's customizability and interactability that made the series so famous, Legends Arceus embraces it the least out of any main series game ever made. No breeding! You can't catch me, I'm a tree now. You can't fight me, I'm in the stratosphere. You can't see me, I'm invisible. The soundtrack pulled a Breath of the Wild and was barely present when actually exploring the world. The human models, the Pokemon models, and the environments all feel like they were made by different groups without enough communication between them to make sure they were adopting similar enough art styles. There's really not a whole lot of variety in the generic NPC models, and that's putting it lightly. Adamant and Arita don't use Pokeballs and therefore don't have Pokeball throwing animations, implying that they just live alongside their Pokemon. But we only ever see their Pokemon in battle or 5 seconds before the battle starts, which would imply they use Pokeballs, unless they just tell their Pokemon to screw off unless they're preparing to battle or something, because you just never see them in any other situations. Some of the new Pokemon models are, well, strange, like Clefable's weird circles around the eyes, or Spiritom's neck not quite being attached to the head. The new models seem to have virtually no shading, filled in with almost completely solid colors, and their only real shading is the poorly implemented shadow effects with the lighting system, and that's it. It would have been nice if your Pokemon could follow you, or at least step closer to you if there's some distance. The textures and details around this world, yeah, it's pretty awful. This game looks like it belongs on the GameCube, or a mid-2000s PC game. Some of the terrain are these incredibly blocky models that look like they were designed by a small child. Hold on a hot second, let me play my cylinder. Reflections aren't even reflections, just reflection effects created from a PNG, the PNG being based on an area that you might not even be at. The character customization really doesn't have a whole lot of choices. Hair options are kept gender exclusive. The Pokemon feel deliberately placed for the player rather than you seeing them in their natural environments. Pokemon operate on very simple cycles. They really don't feel real. A Pokemon can be fully submerged and just not care, or treat the water any differently than regular land. Snow Point Temple. This thing looks so awful that it deserves its own point on the cons list. Major parts of the world just not existing for a hot second when you change camera shots, which results in this brief flash a lot of the time when the camera switches shots, which can be really jarring if you notice it. Let's just have the characters pop into existence in a place that they're clearly still visible in the shot. Render distance? What's that? Frame rate? What's that? Wingardium Leviosa tree! For every single tree in this world on even the smallest of inclines. Cutscene calls for a moderately harder to make animation? Just cut to black and make the player imagine it instead. Voice acting? Nah, we'd rather continue to stick decades in the past because it'll sell well anyway. The mere fact that the highest grossing media IP decided that shipping out such an incomplete game was acceptable and that profit was more important than quality, it's just embarrassing. In such a competitive industry where countless developers have to work their hardest to make a name for themselves and garner even a tiny fraction of the recognition that the established powerhouses get. Meanwhile, in the established big names, quality becomes optional when you can sell by name alone. It's a complete disrespect to those who actually need to try their hardest to become a title people remember. All in all, 40 pros and 100 cons. For a recap, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl I gave 6 pros and 72 cons, though I realized after the video was published there were some points I missed and that the cons should actually be at 80. So if we use this to make a score, that's negative 74 for BDSP and negative 60 for Legends Arceus. Is this the best way to handle a scoring system, weighing every single one of these points equally? That's up to interpretation, but it does at least illustrate the difference in my views towards BDSP and Legends, but also how I feel both titles have such a great number of flaws that really hold them back. Pokemon Legends Arceus is a fun game for the most part, that I have no doubt of. It's a new breath of fresh air to the Pokemon formula that was stagnating for a long time. However, it's just so incredibly poorly executed and has so many corners cut that it's far from feeling like it can call itself a AAA game, never mind the highest grossing media IP in the world. Pokemon has gotten so hooked on building up their annual financial reports that they'd rather push big annual releases rather than taking the time needed to actually release a finished game. 2018 was Let's Go, 2019 was Sword and Shield, 2020 was Sword and Shield Expansion Pass, 2021 was Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, 2022 is Legends Arceus, and also 2022 is Scarlet and Violet. Big annual releases, with sometimes rarely a 2 rather than 1 year break in the mix, was a lot more feasible during the handheld era, especially when releasing third enhanced versions to try and get consumers to basically buy the same game again but better. Production demands were lower than home console by comparison. I won't say it was without its difficulties, Generation 2 is a perfect example of that. But compared to a home console, it was a lot more reasonable to push out regular big releases, especially when each generation of games will be run on the same engine as each other. But now we have the Switch, the home console handheld hybrid, which is already demanding of higher production quality because of the increased power over older handhelds. But on top of that, we see each main series title being something completely different. You're no longer just reskinning how the last one looked to create an all-new game like Series Past, which results in even more production demands. So, naturally, it should follow that more production time is taken to deliver a more consistent level of quality, right? Unfortunately, it seems earnings are more important, and Pokemon has remained true to the same manner of release schedule. Is it really any surprise if Pokemon's tanking quality? I mean, sure, you can get away with releasing games on a regular basis, if you have separate studios working on them. Take Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed for example. They were pushing out annual releases for the longest time because of multiple different studios working on them. I mean, they weren't exactly perfect, anybody that's played virtually any Ubisoft game knows that, but they were still mostly finished. Alright, bad example, but point is, it's way more feasible to push out regular releases with different studios working on different games. Especially when you allow your games to be developed by studios who haven't worked with your IP before, but would love the opportunity to do so and let their passion shine through. Or give opportunities to some of the fans who are dedicated to years of making fan games that get released free of charge, instead of hitting them with the classic Nintendo cease and desist. Pokemon did, for the first time, try and let another studio work on a main series game so Game Freak had a smidge more time to put into Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. But it was an outsourcing company who's never made a video game of their own before, and was clearly just designed to be a quick buck off of nostalgia and branding, and to build up hype for Arceus. Even with another studio being given BDSP, the full focus couldn't be on Legends Arceus for all that long, considering the release of Sword and Shield along with its DLC. In fact, I'm not sure if the full focus was ever on Legends Arceus, considering Scarlet and Violet is slated to release this very same year. Even with this whole weird stance of Pokemon on the Switch, it still feels like they're developing handheld games. The new 3DS model was actually pretty impressive. It was able to run Xenoblade Chronicles, one of the largest games ever made for the Wii. The new 3DS also had Fire Emblem Warriors, a game that released on both the Switch and the new 3DS. The new 3DS even started getting games like Minecraft made available on it. It clearly wasn't half bad in terms of its power. Heck, there were even some games releasing on the normal 3DS that look on par, or maybe even better than Legends Arceus. Pokemon Legends Arceus feels like it would be a fantastic 3DS game, but in terms of home console game quality with the Switch, they're behind by at least a decade, maybe more. I know we talked about it a bit during the gameplay chapter, but I feel it's important enough to draw attention to again. In terms of Pokemon's magic I defined a year ago as its customizability and interactivity, which I'd expressed concern the series was gradually losing more and more, Legends Arceus embraces this the least out of any main series Pokemon game in this IP's long history. Once again, quite a limited selection of Pokemon, the second smallest one we have ever seen in terms of percentage of total Pokemon in existence at the time. I was willing to let the selection slide a bit considering there were new models and animations, some of which are better than others. As for the interactivity, once again, this game can only interact with other games through a subscription service middleman, which still isn't even available after coming up on 4 months past launch. Heck, it's still not even available for BDSP half a year after launch. Honestly didn't see that one coming after the BDSP essay. There's not even any word on when it will become available for either title. I can see the mentality here is to ship now and fix later. As for this game interacting with itself, there are trades, but no battles. For the very first time in main series history, we have a Pokemon game where you cannot battle your friends. Less interactability than ever seen before in over 25 years. Therefore, in terms of the magic of the customizability and interactivity the series have been so famous for, Legends Arceus is the least magical we've seen. You may have a different definition of magic, typically being fun, as has been made clear to me by hundreds of people. But for the context of this argument, it's important to remember that what I mean by magic, and what makes a Pokemon game, is its customizability and interactivity. I'm just using magic as a variable to mean this. I do apologize if I seem like I've repeated this a lot. I just want to make sure it's clear after the past year of people interpreting me saying magic as me saying the games weren't fun, which is not even close to what I argued. Pokémon Legends Arceus is a fun video game with plenty of charm. All in all, it's a pretty alright video game, but is the worst Pokémon game. One of the key questions I wanted to answer with this video essay is, can Legends Arceus save the Pokémon franchise? Now, here's where meaning becomes important once again. So, what do I mean by save the Pokémon franchise? I clearly don't mean it in terms of sales. It's still the highest grossing media IP, and has only gotten larger as more and more audiences are brought into the world of gaming. As the line of what constitutes a gamer continues to get more and more blurred, and with everyone stuck bored at home with the past couple of years of COVID, Pokemon's been doing astronomically well in terms of sales. What I mean by save the franchise is to regain the trust of those who dropped Pokemon as of the Switch era, after the lies, bad business practices, additional paywalls, cut corners, stagnating core system, and so on. Anybody around the Nintendo space in the gaming world for the past several years knows there's a lot of people who became very put off by Pokemon because of the Switch games. The reception on my initial video essay that started this adventure is shining proof of that. Pokemon was kinda like getting a fast food burger from this one place for a long time. You know it's not going to be a masterpiece or anything, but you know it's going to be an enjoyable time, and know pretty much exactly what you're paying for. So when Pokemon started cutting your sides and toppings while charging a greater price, this really turned off a lot of people and got them to leave Pokemon in favor of alternative games like Shin Megami Tensei, Monster Hunter, Temtem, whatever Pokemon fan games haven't gotten hit with a cease and desist, or even, dare I say it, Pixelmon. And no, I don't mean the Minecraft mod, I mean the gross metaverse NFT game I did a video essay on. Or even just other types of games that might not be similar to Pokemon at all. So this really got me thinking, what would it take to regain the trust of those who felt betrayed and left the series? What would it take to bring them back? What would it take to lift Pokemon out of its controversies and into an era where the majority of people are really enjoying the games again, unlike the whole mixed bag every game during the Switch era has been and everybody's seeming to either love it or hate it? I was skeptical of Pokémon Legends Arceus on reveal, knowing it had the potential to lift the veil and become a work capable of restoring the faith of those who had fallen off. This is what I mean by, can Legends Arceus save the Pokémon franchise? So, can it? It absolutely could have, being a breath of fresh air into a stale formula and a fun new gameplay loop in a Pokemon world you truly exist in, but it won't, because it's just so poorly made that it feels like playing maybe a Wii game at best in terms of home console generation, as there's just such a lack of refinement here, as demonstrated by the last 3 hours. It's like playing a really good new 3DS game, or a really early alpha Switch game. I feel like if I was a playtester, this is what I'd come in and play a year or two out from launch, not the game I purchase at full price off the shelf. This could have been the game to restore the faith in Pokemon of those who'd lost it, but because of the way it was handled, it won't. I've seen it most certainly find fun in the hands of those who are disappointed and bored with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I see it all the time in the comments of my BDSP essay and comments on my Legends Arceus playthrough. But I've yet to see Legends restoke the flames of passion with those who've long felt betrayed by Pokemon, which is so sad because this should have been the game to do that. But pumping out regular releases, finished or not, was more important. It's a fun game, but not even close to finished, and does not have anywhere near enough incentive for fans who fell off to come back. That should have been one of the key focuses of making this game in the first place, and from that perspective, Legends Arceus fails. All in all, I feel there really is no better way to put Legends Arceus than a good game made badly. It's not like it's the stale and drab experience that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl was. There's actually something fascinating going on here that makes for a fun and enjoyable gameplay experience. It's just so poorly done that the biggest feeling I have by the end of Legends Arceus is disappointment that it didn't live up to its potential. Legends Arceus was supposed to be the game that launched Pokemon into a new era on a high note, something with a new level of quality never seen before. And while it does partially succeed at doing something new, fresh, and fun, It does so by cutting so many corners that the experience you get by the end of it feels like it's held together by duct tape. If you're a Pokemon fan and you pick up Legends Arceus, you are going to have fun, but is it really a Switch AAA full-priced level of quality? How much did the cut corners detract from an enjoyable gameplay experience? That's up for you to decide. I've fully said my piece on the Switch era of Pokemon now, at least all the known titles as of a year ago when these games were first revealed. So who knows, maybe we'll find ourselves delving back into the strange world that is Pokemon again when Scarred and Test Pilot release. But until then, I'll be getting to work on video essays on other games or problems within the gaming industry that I hope you can look forward to in the coming months. So until then, I thank you so much for taking this journey with me.